All right. Jason, how's the background? Can you see everything? All the words and everything? I know my head's covering up some of this, but just want to make sure that this up here is covered. Oh, hold on. I got to turn my Bluetooth on. Where's it at? There it is. Looks good. Okay, good. Oh. All right, guys, if you're coming in the live, do me a favor and smash that heart. Hit the share, get me pushed out in the algorithm. And like always, hopefully we can have some good conversations. Let's have a good conversation. Had a great live Monday, but then I had to leave a little bit early to go to the debate. Dinosaurs are not biblical. Go look up Job 40, Brian. Job 40 literally talks about dinosaurs. What's up, Jason?
So, man. Am I getting a message? Is that me?
Yeah, it's not. It's not coming through my Bluetooth. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can fix it. All right, now you should be coming through my Bluetooth.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you could give me a really quick. What's your thoughts on? Obviously not preterist, because I know for a fact I wouldn't believe that, but partial preterist, is that something that's like how is that? They believe that everything that's happened essentially in the Old Testament and the falling of Jerusalem or Israel and all that's already come to pass, but everything in the New Testament is still yet to come, or the tribulation.
The biggest with partial preterists, they believe that it depends on who you talk to in the movement, because they disagree with each other too. But partial preterists think that when with the destruction of the temple and Jesus' return, so some partial preterists believe that the Antichrist has already come, because in the part in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, when they ask Jesus, "When are you coming back and what are the signs?" He says that this generation will not pass until these things are complete. Partial preterists mean they take that to say, or preterists themselves, they both take the same viewpoint, that when Jesus says that this generation will not pass, that he's talking to them, that this generation, meaning that these individuals, the disciples that he's talking to, they will not die before, or unalive, before the rapture comes, before they see him coming back. But we know that, in my opinion, we know that that verse is not that generation. When he talks about this generation will not pass, he's talking about when these things start, right? Because they ask him literally, what's the signs of the end of the world? And we know the end of the world didn't happen, right? So what's the signs? When he says this generation will not pass, he's talking about when this time period starts. So the time period that starts is a 7-year time period. It's the 70th week of Daniel. And clearly, because it's a 7-year time period, that generation, whenever it starts, that generation will not pass.
I think I was kind of hung up on those persons already died, but if you look at it word for word, like angel just means messenger. So in that verse, I think it says angel, but angel can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be a disciple. It can be simply a messenger. But I don't know. I think I got hung up on that a little bit. I was like, well, maybe I am somewhat partial preterist.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't think that's biblical. I was like, let me ask creation and see. But you don't believe that way, do you?
I don't believe which way?
So you wouldn't be like, you wouldn't consider yourself a partial preterist, right?
No. No, I'm a pre-wrath guy, not a partial preterist.
Right. Okay. All right, that was my question.
Yeah, man, no problem. Untitled, what's up, man?
Hello. I've been listening to you for a bit, and I have only heard you use the Bible as your evidence.
Then you haven't been listening to me very long, but okay.
I've been on here for at least 3 to 5 minutes. I can't say I've spent hours. I just got off of work.
Oh, okay. Okay. What's your question? And I'll try to help you out.
I'm just looking for other sources to show that creationism is real.
Okay. Like, so whenever I talk about the flood or things like this, I talk about outside sources. Obviously, we got to refer back to the Bible because that's where the flood's mentioned, but I use outside sources to prove it. If I was going to show that the age time period is wrong, then I would talk about the DNA and soft tissue found in dinosaurs. That's not quote unquote biblical.
But that is also proven in evolution.
Well, the soft tissue and DNA is not. Right. So we know what the degradation rates of collagen is, and we know what the degradation rates of DNA is. We know what the half-lives of these things are, and they literally cannot get out to 65 million years old. So if the evolutionary contention is that dinosaurs lived 65 million years ago, then you should not be able to find DNA and collagen inside them. And the fact that we're finding DNA, collagen, and carbon-14 shows that these things did not live millions of years ago.
And so what are the sources?
Well, I've got several. You can go to Mary Schweitzer. She's one of them that talks about finding the soft tissue. Hold on, I can give you the names of the paper. So if you're talking about, we'll do DNA. Okay, so let's do DNA degradation rates first. I'll give you that source of information.
How do you spell her last name?
1 second, I'll pull it up for you. My computer's right in the middle of pulling this up, so let me pull out her other paper then.
And just because I'm curious, what is your background in this?
I'm just somebody that likes to study the science.
So would you say that like you have more of a background in like the biology aspect, the microbiology? Have you done more genetic studies? Like, I'm genuinely curious. I've done a lot of biology study, and so I'm just wondering where you're thinking, like what angle you're.
Sure. Hold on. I'm pulling up one source for you at a time here, and then you asked me for so many that I'm pulling up different ones.
I just asked you for her last name.
I know. I got her last name is Schweitzer, so it's SCHWEITZER.
Sounds
so
good.
Mary Schweitzer.
So she's a paleontologist. Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
She's a paleontologist, right? She's the one that found soft tissue, and she's also the one that found DNA inside of dinosaurs. She's not the only one that's done it, but she was the first to do it. So if you're looking for the paper as to where she found DNA inside of dinosaurs, that's called the Evidence of Proteins, Chromosomes.
I am aware of these studies. Actually, I was.
So then, why did you ask me for the source?
I was asking you for the source of your proof of creationism, sir. Not that DNA has been found.
Hold on one second. So you come in and you claim that you've been watching me for a while, found out it was only about 30 minutes, or 3 minutes, excuse me. And your claim is that I only use the Bible, to which I said, no, I use outside sources too, to which you ask for a reference,
yes.
To which I looked up, to which you say I'm already aware of this. So if you're already aware about the soft tissue and dinosaur DNA, then why did you ask me for a reference if you're already aware of it?
Because
it's kind of wasted my time a little bit.
I don't believe that this disproves evolution, sir.
Okay, do you have a mechanism that can get soft tissue and DNA out to 65 million years?
No, because I'm not a that is not my study. My first question was what sources that you had that were directly linked to proving she proved that there's DNA in fossils. I was asking.
So if we know what the half-life is, right? So what you're doing is you're refusing to go with the conclusion of the evidence. That's a problem. So the conclusion of the evidence is this: we know what the half-lives of DNA is. And I was going to give you the source of that, but evidently you're already aware of it. So DNA inside fossils are 521 years. That's the half-life. So you cannot get measurable amounts of DNA in anything for millions of years old. Can't happen, right? Because we know what the scientific degradation rates are. So then, therefore, you can't come to the exact opposite conclusion of the evidence. That's faith. If the evidence shows that DNA cannot last for 65 million years, and therefore they're finding it in something they believe to be 65 million years, then the conclusion is it's clearly not 65 million years old. And then you're saying that I believe evolution still did it. Well, okay, but you're just going against the evidence and you're refusing to go with the conclusion of the evidence.
Then how do you disprove that evolution is not a theory anymore, that it has been a proved scientific construct?
Well, I'm not proving evolution, so that wouldn't...
Yeah, but what is your evidence to refute that?
So my standard would have to be genetic information gain. It's a great question. So my standard would have to be genetic information gain. For macroevolution to be true, I believe in micro. I think that's testable and observable. But macroevolution, for that to be true, I need to see genetic information gain.
Then your statement that evolution is false is contradictory to what you believe, sir.
Well, I don't have enough room to put everything up there. So if you want to make that overarching claim, then okay, I can concede to that. But it's just trying to get people in here. I don't have enough room to put the 6 different types of evolution up there. And clearly I only believe in one. So I think that's just an overarching statement to get a conversation started.
Okay, that's fair.
Oh, she left. I don't sound like she dropped. So, okay. Somebody asked me to define genetic information. So genetic information gain, it would have to be genetic because you got to be able to pass it on to your children. It wouldn't do any good for you to have evolution happen in you if you couldn't pass that trait on to your child. So it needs to get into the quote unquote germline of the cell, if you will, in an effort for you to be able to pass that information on to your children, right? So genetic. And then information would be new structures, new function, new code, new DNA. And then gain would have to be gained from something that wasn't there before. And if we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, then I think you would have to concede that genetic information gain has happened quadrillions of times. I just need an example of it that's testable and observable that's not inferred. Mutations is not genetic information gain because you're taking an existing organism and you're mutating it. You might switch some of the words around and stuff like that, but it's mutated existing information. You're going to have to give me an example where mutations caused additional information, and we don't have that. So I believe in mutations. I believe in doubling and things like this, but that doesn't get you new information, right? If I took the genetic code that the DNA that tells my body how to build an arm, and I have literally another arm grow out of my side here, that's not new information. That's existing information that was duplicated. So, well, if you think that's a creationist talking point, my panel's open. And I enjoy conversations with people as long as we can follow my simple rules. I only have 3. Okay, well, I enjoy people thinking that I'm wrong, and I'm not the arbiter of truth, so that's why I do this, because I may very well be wrong on things, and people have proven me wrong about specific topics before, so I'm definitely willing to be wrong. Well, here we go. Look here. Harlow, how are you?
I am doing very well. It's good to see you today. How are things?
Good to see you. You sound good. I haven't heard from you in a while.
I've taken some time to heal and spending a lot of time in South Carolina with a clinic down there. I've just returned to North Carolina, just started a new job.
Ooh.
I'm actually getting into cooking competitions with a TikTok friend of mine who happens to be a renowned chef. So just living my best life. It's been a long 3-month journey. But I'd say I'm probably 70%. So it's nice to hear from you too. What is new? Catch me up.
Nah, I just been debating evolutionists or talking to them. I haven't actually had like a formal debate or anything, but
I'm officially retired, but I'm happy to debate with you how we can do like a $20 Sunday supper for 4 people.
that sounds good. Not necessarily my field, but
hi, Alan. I didn't see you down there. How are you? No, yeah, I'm just yeah.
Oh, I'm doing okay.
well, outstanding. It's good to hear from you.
No, good to hear from you too. I think the moral of the story, and anytime you're doing this kind of, this was a struggle. Honestly, it will test your faith. Because there was 3 or 4 times that I didn't think I was going to survive this because it was that painful. It's a level of pain that like you have not experienced before unless you experience it. And I don't wish it on anybody. So it will either like solidify your faith or it will absolutely break it. 1 of the 2.
Amen.
I'm grateful for good people.
Outstanding. All right. Justin, what's up, man?
Later, dear,
What's
and
going on,
I've
brother?
got
How you
some
doing,
things
man?
I got to tell you.
Okay.
I think that was for you, Harlow. He said holler at him later. He's got some things he wants to tell you.
Who said Alan said that or Justin?
That was Alan.
Okay, Alan. Yes, sure. I will absolutely do that. Like I've literally just been back on TikTok for a couple of days.
Okay, sorry about interrupting you, brother.
No worries.
You're fine. No, you're fine, brother. You're fine. All right, Justin, what's up, brother?
Not much, man. Let me start off by saying this. I myself am also, I'm pretty sure, I'm guessing, a devout Christian. You know, we all make mistakes, but, you know, that being said, I 100% agree. The flood was real. You know, everything in the Bible has happened, and they're finding, you know, as we go throughout time, we're finding more and more archaeological artifacts that further prove, you know, stories that were in the Bible to be true. Now, as far as the evolution goes, this is a touchy subject because, you know, me being a devout Christian, I also want to say that I believe in evolution. However, on a scale, like an intergalactic scale. So let's say it takes 10,000 years for something to change. Did we come from monkeys or lizards? No. We came from God's creation. But I think evolution is there, just not the way people think it is. It just takes so long for us to change that nobody in our lifetime, their lifetime, or their lifetime is going to see it. You know, that's the way I believe.
Okay.
That.
Okay, fair enough. So I would define it like this. So, in Christian love, don't take anything that I say here as disrespectful or anything like that, because I'm not trying to be. So, can Christians believe in evolution? Yes, it's not a salvation issue. It's really not. However, I would say, can educated Christians believe? Once it's one thing to be a baby Christian and then you come into the faith. And I'm not the arbiter of truth. There's a lot of Christians who are, way smarter than me that there's like IP and Apostate Prophet and all these big name guys that clearly disagree with me, but they have to use their sources outside the Bible, which I got a problem with. But anyway, long story short, evolution diametrically opposes what the Bible says. These two things cannot coincide together. They're diametrically opposed. For example, the Bible says that the earth was created on day 1, and that the sun was created on day 3 or day 4. So the sun is literally created after the earth. Evolution says the exact opposite. The sun was here first, and then evolution created the planet, right? The Bible says that the plants were made on day 3 and the sun was made on day 4. Well, evolution clearly teaches that the sun come first and then the plants. The Bible says the exact opposite. Evolution says that reptiles slowly evolved into birds. The Bible literally says the birds were made before the reptiles. The Bible says that nothing unalived until Adam sinned. And evolution clearly teaches that millions of things had to unalive as we slowly went from a ape-type ancestor to a human, right? Mm-hmm. Two of these things are not the same. They're diametrically opposed. for one of them to be true, the other one has to be wrong. It is a true dichotomy. They both can't be correct at the same time. And what I find is a lot of Christians try to reinterpret the Bible to fit evolution instead of believing what the Bible says. Now, look, if you're a science person or whatever, I understand that. But if you're a Christian, that's not how we do the Bible. We don't read the Bible and try to make it say something that it clearly doesn't say. I think we should either take it for what it is,
You have to take it.
and
You can't. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You can't.
Now, when
You never
I'm not a scientist, but I'm a scientifically active mind, right? I like to look at things objectively and scientifically if I can, and I just don't see any scientific proof to make me believe what the Bible says. So when I see the things like the Bible makes some claims, right? So if you make some claims in science, right, you got to test your predictions. If your prediction comes true, then you get to move to the next stage of your theory, right? So the Bible makes some claims like a worldwide flood. So I should be able to see evidence of that all over the world if it was worldwide flood. And sure enough, when I put it to the test, it's exactly what I see. I see enough evidence to support that claim that the flood was clearly worldwide. Mm-hmm. So that's why I believe the Bible is true and not evolution. I don't see any evidence for evolution.
Yeah, and I think, I know it wasn't done on purpose, because we can only go back so far as, man's written word, But in the Bible it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I think there's a long time in between that time from when God might have went through a weird point in his life, with the time of story.
Yeah.
But the evolution that I'm talking about is basically like, so let's say people in Alaska, they are much more likely to survive in the cold than we are. Why? Because their bodies have evolved, evolved to get certain traits, or what's the word I'm looking for, that allow them to exist in their habitat or climate. That is
Adaptation. Yeah.
adaptation.
That's
which is also
microevolution. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with
that's
that.
what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, as far as we came from apes or freaking frogs or any of that, no way in hell.
Yeah.
There's no way. If you believe that. But yeah, I think the Bible left a lot of stuff out, and it's good. We don't need all the answers. I think we won't know for sure until we're standing tall before the man. I think it's better that
Amen.
way. It comes in.
All right, brother. Well,
pretty well. But I appreciate talking to you, man. I was good. You got a good topic there, and I appreciate you being.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Have a good day, brother. I'm gonna give you a follow.
Thank you, man. You too. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. God bless. God bless.
Bless you too, brother. Take it easy, man.
Thank you, sir. All right, Spinny, I'm gonna come to you, but listen, man. As always, you need to watch your language and follow my rules, okay?
Yep. So my first problem is that you guys keep using evolution as to refer to multiple different scientific disciplines, which not accurate. Evolution refers to biological evolution.
Okay.
Right.
That's just that. If you want to talk about biological evolution, but that's not true. You literally have cosmic evolution, stellar evolution, chemical evolution. So to say that evolution only pertains to biological evolution is not true.
When we talk about evolution, we are using it in the sense of biology. When you say stellar evolution, you are talking about something else. That's not evolution.
No, if I say that hydrogen and helium got together and collapsed under their own gravitational weight and created a star, is that stellar evolution?
No, that is stellar genesis.
That's stellar evolution.
No, not evolution.
I'm not gonna.
Is a biological process.
Spinny, I'm not gonna argue with you over definitions. If you have evidence, but
you want to use
it's just not true.
Incorrectly, because it's Christian talking point. You use the word incorrectly. That's your guys' entire.
Okay, well, if you want to talk about micro or macro evolution, then we can talk about that.
Those are not real. There's only one evolution. The differentiation between micro and macro evolution is a Christian talking point.
Do you know? Again. It's a Christian talking point. Do you know that it was
it's just evolution?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's actually look into that claim and see who's right. Let's see if a Christian come up with that term or an evolutionary biologist that come up with that term.
Fantastic.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the origins of micro versus macro. Are you aware of this?
Go ahead.
Sure. So the original individual that started making up the term of micro and macro evolution, I'm going to spell his name because he's German. and clearly I'm not going to be able to say it. So his first name is Yuri, Y-U-R-I. His last name is Flipachenko, maybe? And it's spelled Filipchenko. And he coined the term micro and macro evolution in his book. I'm going to spell this Variabilit, A with the two little dots over top of it, T. And he wrote this book in 1927. And some of his beneficities, if you will, is he is a professional biologist. He's a geneticist. He's one of the early researchers applying Mendelian genetics to evolution. So he's an evolutionary biologist. He's an immunologist. He is I already said evolutionary biologist. He also had a very famous student that was very high up in evolution. His name is Theodosius Dobzhansky. His last name is spelled Dobzhansky, and he's the one that brought micro and macro, those terms, to the United States 10 years later in 1937. Now, in his book. Now, he was an evolutionary biologist, but he literally come up with the terms micro and macro because he did not think that Darwin's theory of evolution, he believed in evolution, he just thought that there has to be another factor to it because the Darwinian theory of evolution doesn't get us to the major changes that we need. Funny enough, in 2016, I think it was, there was a group of evolutionary biologists that got together and had this very same discussion, very famous meeting between the evolutionary biologists. I usually don't bring this up in debates because they literally didn't change anything, but they absolutely got together and debated whether they should change the theory of evolution because the Darwinian theory of evolution just wasn't getting them to where they needed to go. Now, because they didn't change anything, I usually don't bring it up, but this shows that Flipachenko was a main, what he believed back then is mainstream today. So, sir, unless you have some additional evidence, that's the origination of micro and macro. It is not a Christian talking point. It is literally came from biological evolution.
Christians.
Oh wait, is your claim changing? Because I thought it was a Christian talking point.
I'll walk it back. I'll concede that this guy was an orthogeneticist, and one, he was Russian. He wasn't German. That's very clearly with his last name.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, and two, all right, sure, this guy came up with it, but the only people I ever hear using it are Christians.
It's not my problem. I can't help it.
Well, y'all want to keep making these differentiations of different types of evolution when there's one evolution, which is biological evolution.
But I just showed you that's not true, and yet you're still sticking with it. It's evolutionary biologists that come up with this term, and now you're going against the science, and not you're saying that there's just one. Not according to evolutionary biology. There's not.
So here's the thing, though. He's not mainstream because he's a eugenicist, and his beliefs and his theory was thrown out because it supported eugenics.
But his theory was not thrown out. His theory is not.
I'm reading it right now.
I'm not. Listen, what I'm saying is that his theory was not thrown out because it was literally debated in 2016. That's not throwing the theory out.
Yeah. And Nazis walk the street and debate shit like that all the time. Doesn't mean they're valid. Flat Earth is talked about today. Doesn't mean it's valid.
It's not that they're talking about it. It's they're coming up to the same thing he is. A lot of mainstream scientists have the exact same viewpoint that he does. The reason they have this viewpoint is the reason they had the meeting. It's not like everybody's 100% in agreement about how this stuff works.
You're right, but for the most part, hold on. Let's see. What is it? Arguments, Lamarckianism, other theory, inheritance, some Soviet scientists, yada yada yada.
I don't mind you coming up and Googling things, but I think you should have Googled this stuff before you come up here and trying to contend with me about it. Because now I'm just arguing with Google.
Somebody up, and so when you brought up new information, I'm going to Google it in real time.
I brought him up in the claim that I made, and I was right. We can still debate this guy if you want to, but it didn't make any sense.
I don't care about the guy.
I'm using the correct term in micro and macro, so that's the correct term. I'm sorry you don't like it, but that's a you problem.
All right. Well, the issue is that micro, how you described it, leads to what you describe as macro evolution.
Great. Can you give me an example of that that's testable and observable that's not inferred?
Oh, I mean, like you're asking me to like simulate millions of years of time, which is an unreasonable.
No, it's not. Well, see, millions of years of time. Okay. Well, evolution is not time based. It is a factor, but it's not time based. That comes from the X-Men, right?
Generation. So if you have to, if you're
Okay,
if evolution is
generations.
based off, if evolution is based off of multiple generational changes, then you, in order to have a large creature go through that, such as, let's say, take a cow for example, that means we have to go through hundreds of thousands of generations in order to.
So let's not do it. Let's not do a cow. Let's do something like bacteria so that we can see it very quickly. This is called the Linsky experiment. So why don't we see? Why don't we? Yeah. Okay. Give me an example where you think that they proved evolution happens.
E. coli.
Through information gain.
Tons of E. coli experiments.
Yeah. And what did they show? Did they show information gain or degradation?
They change. In fact, bacteria gain information all the time when you expose them to antibiotics. Well, how they gain the new information to resist new antibacterials? Is that
okay?
Not
So
new
great
information?
No. And what happens is the antibiotic.
Where from?
I'm gonna show you where it come from. The antibiotic resistance predated the invention of antibiotics. We know this because they took the caveman that was frozen. I think his name is Itzy, the Itzy man. So his bacteria in his gut, you can take bacteria and revive that for anybody that's listening. So they revived the bacteria that was in his stomach. That bacteria never had the opportunity to be hit with antibiotics. They've also done it in permafrost, and they've done it in a Mexican cave where they drilled down in the ground, and this cave is supposed to be whatever million years old and never been seen by humans. And so all of these different types of bacteria never had exposure to antibiotics. So when they revived them, they hit them with antibiotics and found that the resistance was still there. So the resistance predated the invention of antibiotics. Number one, that's a mic drop. That means that antibiotics, it did not evolve. It was already here.
Hold on. You do realize that that's not the only conclusion that can be.
Okay, so I'm giving you.
They evolved to resist the antibacterials.
Okay, so how did they evolve to resist the antibiotics before the invention of antibiotics? How did they do that?
Well, when you pull them out of the gut and then you expose it to them, then you expose it to them. It didn't.
So it evolved on the spot. Is that what it is? It evolved it on the spot. That's pretty.
It's not on the spot.
Miraculous, right?
Generations. It's not miraculous.
But
it's chemistry.
But it happened. But they found that the resistance was already there. And I can tell you how some of these resist.
Bacteria can develop a resistance because that's how bacteria work. Is because they respond to external stimuli, and then those who die, and those who don't die clearly have some sort of advantage that they acquired.
Okay, so let me help you out because it's like you're just going to stick to it no matter what. So here's a fact statement.
Stick to your faith no matter what.
But I know. I'm gonna show you. Okay, calm down. So the antibiotic resistance predated the. Okay, well, show me. The antibiotic resistance predated the invention of antibiotics. That is a fact statement. Two, when you're talking about these antibiotics becoming, or these bacteria becoming more resistant to antibiotics, okay, they do this through degradation. In other words, some of the bacteria have different ways in which they can resist antibiotics. Some of the ways that they resist them is like a pump, right? The pump mechanism that the bacteria already have that pump out the antibiotics. They may have a mutation that makes the pump stronger. That's not new information. That's literally microevolution. You're taking a trait that. Well, it's not new information because it already exists.
If suddenly a pump becomes stronger because of a mutation, that's new information.
No, it's not. You're literally taking existing information. It's not showing you how the pump got there, brother. It's the pump is just becomes. It's taking your pump and you're. Hold on, brother. Brother, listen. You're taking the pump and you're making it work out. Man, if you don't want to have a conversation, I don't mind it getting contentious, but it's just like now you want to throw stuff up against the wall. Oh, it is new information. The pump's pre-existed. Yes, it's not new information.
You're the one throwing things at the wall.
Okay, so if I take a set of weights, right, and I work them out, and I work out, I do some curls, right? I want my arms to get bigger. Because I've added muscle to my arms, is that new information? Or did I take existing information and just work it out? And make it stronger.
That's a category area. It's
not a category. The pumps pre-existed and they just got stronger.
A proper analogy would be I took a blowtorch to my air compressor on my diesel, and then a day later my air compressor got stronger. The issue is that, or my cylinder got bigger. That's new information.
It's not new information. It's existing information. There's no new. All right. Well, I guess we're just stuck then. If you don't have any other examples,
like that yesterday, it became.
If you don't have, Okay, brother, I
One
got you.
plus
If you
one
don't
is
have,
two, my guy.
all right, okay, that's fair enough. But the conversation's kind of over if that's where we're going to be stuck at, because clearly that's existing
Your
information.
faith won't let you accept any new information about the subject.
I know, brother. I appreciate the conversation. I do. Okay, but we're just
So
stuck
why
right
are you
here.
talking about this if you are unwilling
All
to
right.
change.
Have a good day, Spinny. I appreciate it, man. You're starting to spaz out on me. I do appreciate it. I was trying to end the conversation cordially, but I'm not just going to get stuck on back and forth me saying that's not new information and you saying that is new information, because clearly it's not. It's not new information. That information literally already existed. Making information stronger is not new information, and I think you just want to say that it is. Couple of real quick before I move on to the next guest, I was trying to land the plane about there's different ways the bacteria become resistant. Some of them is like the attachment points for the receptors that the antibiotic attaches to literally degradates. It loses. So it would be the same as me saying that I've lost my arms, so now I'm immune to handcuffs. Look how much I've evolved, right? So taking existing information is not new information. It's literally existing information. Using the pumps to pump out bacteria when the pumps pre-existed is not new information. Jane, what's up?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I was thinking a lot of things, then I was listening to everybody and what you guys are going on, but I guess the main thing for me is realizing I am a Christian. Obviously, I believe in the Bible and everything is true from the Word of God, 100%. But when it comes to evolution and adaptation, I think it gets very confusing for a lot of people. And I think the one solid thing that made it very clear for me was when you're speaking about evolution over a very long period of time, changes and changes and changes are happening and occurring, which is essentially adaptation. But with evolution, in the end, it essentially creates a new organism. It's not the same as once it was. It is actually creating a completely separate organism from what it started from. Adaptation just stays the same organism and changes over time. Does that make sense?
So I believe in, let me clearly define my terms. I got somebody in the comments saying, does this guy not believe that dogs come from wolves? Yes, that's the same kind of animal, right? That's still the dog kind, right? Just because we call one a wolf and call one a dog doesn't mean that they're different kinds of animal. You can say that they're different species, but okay, they're still the same kind of animal, right? We can take a wolf and breed it down to a dog. I would agree with that. There's still no new information in that. That's literally taking existing information, taking specific traits, isolating those traits, and either encouraging or discouraging those traits. You haven't added any new information. In fact, you've degraded the existing information. So when you say that these organism changes over long periods of time, again, evolution is not time based, right? It's generational based. So why is it that we can do this with E. coli bacteria? This is the Linsky experiment, where we can have, bacteria can have up to 9 generations in a single day. This is the reason they're doing this on bacteria, is because we should be able to see evolution in real time. So why is it in 80,000 generations in what evolution says used to be an ape type ancestor, in 80,000 generations we went from that to a human type ancestor? Why is it when we test and observe 80,000 generations in bacteria, we get degraded worse off bacteria? Evolution is like the slit experiment in science. Whenever you notice it, it messes with the results and you can't see it. So evolution happened long ago and far away, but anytime you try to test and observe it, it just does the exact opposite of what you're trying to do. It degrades it. There's no information gain in that.
Right. I'm sorry. Were you talking to the guy about the wolf, or was that for me?
Well, but it was for you. It was for you too, because you mentioned that these things change over long periods of time.
Well,
and
I guess my point. I mean, everything takes time to change. It's not really time based. I just mean when you go through when evolution is complete, it creates a brand new organism, and when adaptation occurs, it's still the same organism that it was from when it started. Okay,
can you give me an example of this new organism that changed from one to another that's testable and observable, that's not inferred?
Well, if you're talking about evolution, obviously you go back to Darwin's theory, right? So like he's making the claim that evolution is occurring from monkeys and then creating humans. And I think I disagree with that, because That's
Okay.
not that's create that's why evolution is what it is because it's saying it's creating a new organism, which isn't true. And that's why I think adaptation is the only thing that's really occurred and evolution doesn't exist. Because otherwise
with
you're
you.
creating an entire new creation without really having, any explanation for that. Because evolution in itself is creating an entire different organism. It's not.
I'm with
the
you. I
same.
thought you were taking the affirmative on that. So yeah, you agree
Yeah.
with me then. I got
That's
you.
why I was confused when you responded.
Okay, yeah, I was. Yeah, I thought you were taking the negative, but you're affirming what I say. So I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just like the flu. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about this, I'm sure. I haven't been on here long, but the reason they
I gotcha.
say that, the flu, it adapts. The bacteria adapts or the viruses adapt. They don't evolve because it's not creating something new. It's simply changing what already exists. And so when
Well,
it
thank
comes
you.
to the biblical sense of things, I believe that when God created man, man was always man. Yes. Do we live 800 years anymore? No. But that's adaptation. That's a response to our environments, a response to, what we eat every day, or, our
gotcha.
environment around us. I mean, that's all it is.
Well, Jane,
There's nothing new. Nothing new has been created under the sun.
Amen.
It's all still here. Anyway.
Well, thank you for coming up and sharing that with us. I'm looking for some ops, but I do appreciate
Oh,
the words of encouragement and the agreement.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, brother, I got a question for you.
Was you in here next? I don't want to skip anybody.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, and whoever, I don't know.
Yeah, let me
who
see. I
was
think
up next.
it should be in line here. So let me go to Brandon. I think he was in here next, and then I'll come to you
Sure
after
thing.
that. Now, I don't mind a little bit of interruption if it's on topic and you want to add to it. I'll control it if it starts to get out of hand. So if you got something on topic and you want to add, then feel free to jump in within reason. Okay.
Amen.
Brian, what's up, man?
Hey, so I just kind of had like I don't disagree, or I mean I do disagree with you, but I also just kind of wanted like a clarifying question. Like you're talking a lot about adaptation and like how it's like losing stuff and there's no new things were created or whatever. But when I think about evolution, I just think about like millions of adaptations over time eventually lead to a new organism, quote unquote. So I just wanted to like a clarifying question of like the difference between millions of adaptations over time versus I don't know.
Yeah,
you know
great.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's a great question. I usually I have to define this several times because new people will come in. But for macroevolution to be true, I'd have to see genetic information gain. Genetic because it's got to be passed on to your children, new information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA, and then obviously it'd have to be gained from something that wasn't there before. Don't show me an example of existing information. I believe in adaptation. I think that microevolution is true. I believe in mutations. I think that that's true. I believe in horizontal gene transfer and all of these things. Those were clearly designed. What I don't see is information gain. Again, genetic because it's got to be passed on to its children, new information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA, and obviously gained from something that wasn't there before. This is a very reasonable standard because if we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, then evolutionists would say this happened literally quadrillions of times. I just need one example that's testable and observable that's not inferred.
okay. Yeah. All right. I understand that. All right. I'm just going to keep listening now. Thanks, man.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate it. Looking for some ops, guys. So if you agree with me, and that's fine. But if I have to start making room for people on the panel, then I'll have to start removing people. But you're good.
I disagree.
Good right now.
I disagree that you should be saying that evolution is false. And,
Okay, well, hold on. I'll get to you, brother. Ryan was in here next,
Sure.
and then you can feel free to jump in too if it's on topic. But Ryan was in here next. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. I'll just say I do disagree with the prompt.
Okay.
I do personally believe that evolution is probably the best understanding we have of how creatures came to be at this particular point in time.
Okay.
Now, I do have a question for you. When you talk about, and this is kind of similar to what Brandon was talking about, when you talk about differences in terms of mutations versus adding genetic code,
Oh, sorry.
have there been, and maybe this is some part of ignorance on my part, but has there been any reliable scientific evidence that added genetic code is impossible to derive from mutations?
Well, that's why I do this. If you have any evidence that you'd like to bring up that I'm not aware of,
yeah,
we can contend with that. But
no, sure. I was curious. I know I'm not. I got you.
Well, I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Well, clearly I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, I haven't seen it either. I was just saying. So in that case, then throughout let me ask you another question here.
Okay.
Is your reasoning, are you basing this any biblically?
Well, I mean, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian. I'm a Bible-believing Christian, but
sure,
yeah, I talk about the Bible when I need to talk about the Bible. But I mean, I try to use science on science without having to bring in God. I'm not afraid of it. I will if I need to, or I feel like it's necessary. Like when I talk about the flood, I talk about evidence, but then I also have to talk about the Bible because clearly that's where the flood is mentioned.
Right.
But I also understand that evolutionists are not going to accept because the Bible said so. So I try to stay away from that.
Right.
Well, thanks, man.
No problem. Yeah,
yeah.
I kind of I've always got more questions, but
yeah, that's fine. You feel free to jump in when you need to.
Yeah.
DRB, what's up, brother?
Hey, yeah. Very interesting statement in the Bible is that the serpent was apparently walking, and then he was cursed. The serpent was cursed. I won't say he. So he couldn't walk. Now, are there not vestiges of legs, attachments on snakes?
No.
There are not.
Yeah, they're not. There are attachment points there, but they're not vestigial, though.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
Well, it depends on. So evolutionists have changed the modern definition of vestigial, but the most colloquial term of vestigial would be like a completely useless organ. So the two legs, or the two what you're calling used to be legs for the snake, they're not vestigial. They help the snake maneuver for its reproductive purposes. So snakes don't have arms where they can hold their baby and put it, do the hop on the good foot and do the bad thing. So those two little bones that stick out help line up their organs so that they can reproduce. That's the best way that's the most family friendly way that I can put it.
So, so you don't think that they are points at which legs attached before? I mean, some creationist people might say that, or some Bible believing
I couldn't use
might say that.
I couldn't use that as I wouldn't use that as evidence because again they're not vestigial. They have a purpose. So I would say I would clearly say that that's designed because they have a purpose, but I wouldn't say that they used to have this secondary purpose.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that was something I wondered about. Now, regarding saying that evolution is false, I mean, evolution is not a unified belief theory. There are variations, I'm sure, in people's ideas of evolution. But regardless, I mean, interspecies evolution, you may be talking about. We cannot prove that is false. That's a proof of a negative that's not really possible. The same way you can't really prove that creation occurred by God creating all these animals. For example, he also said, "Let the earth bring forth this. Let this happen. Let this happen." And the meaning behind that could be quite varied. So I think it gives room for some sort of an evolutionary process. Another possibility is, of course,
I would agree with that
inserting
100%.
genetic material or special creation in the case of Adam and Eve.
So let me contend with that a little bit about saying the Bible gives room for evolution. I did a little bit earlier, but like I said, it's been a while. So it's not a salvation issue. So if you're a Christian in here and you believe in evolution, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to strengthen the faith of the Christians. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I'm gonna obviously say what the Bible
I don't
says.
believe or disbelieve. I just discuss. Yeah.
I got you. So evolution in the Bible, as far as the Christian, the Christian Bible, obviously, diametrically oppose each other. For example, evolution says that the sun was here first and then the planets. The Bible says the sun was created on day 4 and the planet was created on day 1. It says that the planets were created.
No, it doesn't say it was created then. In verse 1, it
Yes, it
actually
does.
says, doesn't use the word created there at all in English.
Yes.
Now,
Well, he says
Right.
that he made
Oh.
the sun on day 4, right?
no, it doesn't say that he made the sun on day 4. It merely uses a
Oh, come
past
on, brother. I
tense.
can
It says
go-
that he made the sun. In the first verse, if you take it in the English translation, which is different than probably the Hebrew, it says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That would imply the sun as well, all the galaxies that did exist at that time, right? So
Yeah.
the sun was pre-existing.
And God said
and
the
sun-
lights being. Hold on, it said, and
Yeah.
God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be signs for seasons and for years and for days, and let them be lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of heaven and gave light upon the earth to rule over the day and to rule over the night, and divided the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. So what are you talking about?
I'm talking about verse 1. How does that? You're saying that negates what's stated in verse 1.
Well, hold on. We went.
Says that the
we were
heavens and
talking
the earth
about.
were created.
Okay, so
what on day 1? On day 1.
Okay. Yes, day 1, and God makes light, but that's not the sun. I said the sun. I didn't say anything about day 1. I said the sun.
No, the heavens,
evolution
the sun
teaches
is
that.
part of the heavens.
That's not
The
true.
sun is part of the heavens.
That's not true.
Okay, you don't think so?
Well, the Bible doesn't say that.
I see it differently, but
Okay.
you know,
Well, I
we
mean,
can
but
all
we
read
gotta-
it differently, and
if we're-
I'm suggesting a different reading of it than you do.
Okay,
But-
well let me
Go
help you out with
Go
this
ahead.
then. Evolution teaches that reptiles, like dinosaurs, slowly turned into birds. The Bible says that the
Sure,
birds are made
yes.
before the reptiles. Can you read this different?
Yeah, interesting. Let's read that, and that may differ between the two
Well, the thing about-
accounts. I appreciate
the thing
that.
about this understanding of the Bible is what a lot of people miss of it, and I think this is a problem with sort of certain denominations of Christianity that believe in sola scriptura, which is that the Bible is intended to be a library of different types of literature. And Genesis, in particular, is a very poetic book. It's
Agree,
a poem.
fully.
This
It's
is
a poem of
this is-
the telling of the accounts of creationism. So
I would-
giving the purpose of Genesis is not to be a scientific book. It's to
I would agree. I would
to
agree with
admit-
that, but this
to
is
admit
also-
truths about God's nature and His being, but doing it in a way that the people of the time would understand. And it's through a
Right.
poetry, love language of talking about the creation. So that's what I want to
I
go
get-
in and say.
I got you. So this is usually an excuse people try to make in an effort to try to fit their theology in the Bible when the Bible clearly doesn't say that. They say, "Oh, well, it wasn't written this way." Yes, it was. The people that originally had the Bible, the early Christians, or the early Jews, obviously they were before the Christians, so the early Jews, they did not see this as semantic language. You have to go outside of the Bible in an effort to get that interpretation, not inside the Bible. Inside the Bible is very, very clear. Now, I do agree that it was written poetically. People do this in an effort to remember things better. They turn the stories into like a song or a rhythm so that they can chant it. Jews are notorious for doing this so that they can remember the scripture. That doesn't mean that because they wrote it in a poetic way that it's made up or meant to be poetry. They do that in an effort to remember the scripture better. Right? There a lot of scriptures written like this. Even the Quran's written like this, right? That doesn't make it true or false. So it's written to be literal. It's not written to be taken falsely. And
However,
it go ahead.
That line of reasoning, which is common in the sola scriptura line of reasoning, scripture alone, right? And this is especially a criticism of the Catholic Church, that people are going outside of the scriptures to determine, to make judgments upon what is in the scriptures. But everybody does that. Every Christian,
Right.
every denomination that. Because
So-
it's impossible for the book to have any meaning to you unless you can interpret it personally. So everybody.
Well, I think you got to be. I think you got to be consistent. But you're breaking up. I think you're in the red, so you're starting to go in and out. I think if you're going to be consistent, because I don't think if you're a Christian and you have, I debate, right? I haven't had like a formal debate, but clearly I get on here and debate with people every day. And if you're a Christian and you claim up and say, and you come up and you say, well, I believe this part, but not that part, I'm going to eat your lunch because you have no consistency. I'm going to say, the only place that you know about this Jesus character is literally in the Bible. That's where you get Jesus from. So why do you choose to believe the stories about Jesus, but you don't believe what he said about Genesis? You believe that he is God, but you believe he got this part wrong, but he got this part right. There's no consistency in your thought process.
Well,
You're
I
just
wouldn't
literally
say that
picking
any
and
of-
choosing what you want to believe.
Right. No, I understand. I
And then-
understand that
and then-
argument. But
Hold on. Secondly, well, I lost it. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry. I was going to say that,
Oh, you're right.
there's part of it. There's part of something true that you're touching on here, which is that you can't pick and choose scriptures and throw things out. Like,
Yeah. And I wouldn't
some of
say
this
that
is
I'm
true.
sola
You have to accept
scriptura.
all
I
of this
think
as being true.
I think tradition is great.
gonna say-
I do think that we can get knowledge and stuff from the church fathers, but here's my standard. If they contradict what the book says, I don't care what they say. For example, I hate to keep bringing him up, but Inspiring Philosophy, he's one of the guys that I like to watch on. He's very educated, but he constantly keeps trying to say the Bible doesn't say that the earth is young. I can go to the Bible and say that. Yes, it does. I can add up the lineages when it literally states that Adam was 120. Now, I do think that there's some room in there because we don't know when the counting started. So I think that there's some room, but not millions of years. So I can say that I think the church fathers are very important. I think what they taught is great. But if they contradict the Bible, I go to the Bible. I don't need them to tell me what it says. I don't need a guru, right? I can read it for myself, and then I can make some determinations as to if it's true or not. And that's why I like science and the Bible, is because I think they mesh up nicely. Now, clearly, things that are classified as a miracle, I couldn't prove that scientifically.
Right. What I'm trying to say too is that when you read the Bible, and when you know,
Mhm.
and I'm not trying to attack anybody. I just like discussing this stuff. But when you read the Bible, there's different ways, like we were talking about. There's different ways to extract truth from every single thing that's in the Bible. Now, if somebody came out here right now and said something that completely contradicted something that was in the Bible and something that is believed to have happened in the Bible, like i.e. the resurrection of Christ, then that simply it's not true. These are important historical things that have had to have happened. Now, but I will, as a Christian, admit that all of the Bible is true. There's different forms of truth, but that all the Bible is true. It's just given to us in different languages. And I had another point I was trying to make, but it's
I got you, brother.
in regards to the age of the earth and things like that, and science, because God doesn't want us to do something that is juxtaposed to our reason, our rational reason as human beings. Faith is something
Agreed.
that's on the far side of the far side of reason, but it's not contradictory to reason. So when you,
Agreed.
as a scientist, are analyzing the Earth, and you come to find, and you use carbon dating, and you use scientific methods to date the age of certain materials, or you backtrack via physics and gravity to a certain theoretical age and date at which the Earth could be, and this is what the best science is telling us. There is a way for you to go back into the Bible and re-examine things that you had thought were a particular way. Let me help.
help.
And yes, what you're doing is you're trying to make it fit, but you're not trying to cut out any essential truths that the Bible is teaching.
Okay, so
Or any of the
let me respond to what you just said right there before we rabbit trail off of that, because I want you to understand what you just said there. Is we can look at things like you said carbon dating. Carbon dating only goes out to 50,000. Most people just mean radiometric dating in general when they do these things. No problem. So you're saying that if radiometric dating shows us this age, then I go back in the Bible and try to look at. So you're literally trying to reinterpret the Bible. That's not how we read the Bible, brother.
No, that's not
But
true. You're
we don't try to make the
reinterpreting your
Bible fit.
understanding of it.
So as
Now-
Christians, what we should hold on, let me land. What we should do as Christians is we should not everybody has their own field, but one of my callings I feel like is very strongly is I study this stuff so that when people come in here and say, hey man, carbon dating or radiometric dating shows an old Earth, and I can go, no, it doesn't. Radiometric dating has three fundamental flaws in every radiometric dating technique. Number one, you have to assume the parent material. Number two, you have to assume the decay rate remains constant. And number three, you have to assume it's in a closed system. We know number three doesn't exist. Nothing on the planet is in a closed system. Radiometric material can leach in and out. If you want to say that that's not true and it's in a closed system, then the carbon-14 they're finding in dinosaur bones unequivocally proves that they're less than 50,000 years. I win, right? Because they're finding carbon-14 in dinosaurs, and that would prove that they're less than 50,000 years. But their excuse for finding carbon-14 in dinosaur bones is stating that the radiometric 14 leaches in the material by groundwater. So the amount of assumptions that you have to use in radiometric dating, and then here's the thing, we can date items of known age, and radiometric dating just doesn't work. So why is it when we can date items of known age with radiometric dating, it doesn't work? They've done this with Mount St. Helens. They've done this with time and time again. I can give you examples in papers where they've dated items of known age. The radiometric material gave them vastly wrong ages, but yet when you don't know the age of the item, then you assume radiometric dating material works. Just doesn't make any sense to me. If it doesn't work on the items of known age, then why would we assume it works on the items of unknown age? So radiometric material or radiometric dating in itself is pseudoscience. Doc, you keep unmuting, man. You got a lot of background noise, brother. You got to fix that.
Who, me?
The guy at the top, DR.
Real quick,
So-
boys, because I don't want to interrupt you. I've been very patient. I am
I
a
got you, man.
believer
We got-
of God. I believe in Jesus Christ.
Thank you, man.
Evolution is false. Can you raise up your dominant hand that you use your phone with? I want you to look at your pinky. Now, turn it to where you're facing us. Flip it around. I want you to grab your telephone if you're not using it.
That's what I'm talking to you on.
So right there, go a little bit closer to the screen. We all have that indention right there. That is our modern day evolution right there from our phones. We
Give me an
can't
example.
see. I'm explaining it to you, brother. I just said
Okay.
it's from our phone.
Okay.
We can't see major evolutions, but there's proof of them. To date rocks and all that, it's impossible for the sun to be formed in 6 days, brother. I hate this argument because I'm a believer of God. Now, when I
Okay,
say
well,
this, I am saying
Hold
that
on, brother.
through
Hold on.
God,
Don't throw.
all
Wait.
things are impossible.
Don't throw. I got you, but don't throw up a lot of things, and we got a rabbit trail. Let's do one at a time.
I'm not.
So you do believe in God, but then you think He took 6 days to create the sun? That's not what
No,
the Bible
it's
says.
impossible.
Right. So is it impossible for God to create?
We don't know.
What?
What do you mean, what?
You don't know if God can create, but yet you believe in God?
I didn't say God can't create. I'm saying we can't
I
fathom
just asked you
the
that.
time of sun being created. You know
Okay.
what plasma is?
Yes.
It's impossible to do that, bro.
I don't know. Plasma is just hot gas. I don't know what you mean. So let's
That's my point.
Let's start
That's
over.
the sun.
Okay, so
Now, the
can God
oldest
create?
material
Stop!
on Earth are-
Stop!
Ay, ay, ay.
Can God create?
Brother, is evolution false?
All right, man. Have a good day.
Yeah, you muted me.
Yeah, I know. I'm not muting you. I'm kicking you. There's a difference. I don't. You're really weird. Now's a good time for me to go over my rules, guys. Rule number 1 is you have to answer questions directly. Okay, that's why when he answered my question with a question, I went ahead and removed him. Answer questions directly, and then you can expound. These rules apply to me also. Rule number 2 is if you make a claim, you have to support the claim, back off of the claim, or say, I don't know. I don't know is a perfectly reasonable answer. However, if you come up, make a claim, refuse to support the claim, and then just insist that the claim still remains true, then I'm going to remove you. And then lastly, please use TikTok language and family-friendly language, no cussing, because I got families and stuff that like to listen to me too. It takes me a long time to have to go in here and edit all the cuss words out, so I would prefer not to have to do that. So, MF, you have been very
host,
patient. What you got?
Host, you make the claim that evolution is false, but you don't support it. You don't prove it. Okay. So
hold on, brother.
You don't follow your own rules.
All right, Doc. Come on, man. I thought it was MF. He's been waiting patiently. You already come in here and then you left, so I'll get back to you. And I'm also doing the negative, so it's hard for me to claim a negative when I say evolution doesn't exist. So to support my claim, I'm showing you that there's no evidence. There, I've supported my claim. MF, what's up, man?
Yeah, I have 2 clarifying questions before I get to the crux of what I want to talk about. So is it fair to claim that one of the main reasons for this live is that you want to bring Jesus to people who don't necessarily believe or have like a lack of like appreciation of that?
Great question. So I do this for 2 reasons. One, I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians and show them that science proves the Bible, and the Bible's, there's nothing wrong with it. And then 2, if you're not saved, I want to try to get you saved through sharing Jesus Christ with you. So absolutely.
All right. Now let's get to the Lenski experiment, which is the main reason I was coming up here. What's your idea of what the goals of the experiment were?
It was to test evolution.
Test evolution, like specifically pertaining to humans. Where do you see them?
I don't think.
The reason I bring this up is because when we had this conversation the other day, I made the statement that it was incongruent trying to argue that the Lenski experiment is comparable to human evolution. And you essentially asked multiple times, then why would they do this experiment if that's what they were asking? So I got from that you were trying to say that the Lenski experiment should give some sort of credence to human evolution as well.
No, it's just evolution in general. I don't think that it's what I think I partly remember our conversation. I don't think that it's congruent as far as showing human evolution. My point was to you that if in 80,000 generations, meaning that evolution was true, when we went from 80,000 generations, we went from an ape type ancestor to a human type ancestor, then we should be able to see this. That kind of like sets the bar, right? So in a single-celled organism or a small scale, we should be able to see evolutionary change very easily, like the Lenski experiment. Well, saying no that's not a refutation.
Yeah. I'm ready to get into it. So the main thing that I keep seeing you bring up from this, and why I wanted to come back up here and refute what you were saying, is specifically because of rule number 2. That you were saying is if you make a claim, you have to prove it, and you can't just keep saying it is what it is, it is what it is. And the other day I came up here and I was telling you how prokaryotes and binary fusion is not comparable to showing you eukaryotic evolution and sexual reproduction. And so what we see here is I have given you consistently a reason to show that this might not be your strongest point to keep bringing up, and yet time after time after time I see you going back to the same exact points. So it doesn't seem like you are open to actually hearing out.
Yeah, well, forgive me for
changing your
disagreeing with you. Well, I'm changing my mind, but I'm not going to change it when I disagree with you. So now let me ask you, did they do the Lenski experiment in an effort because they thought they could see evolution in real time, meaning that they thought they could be able to see evolution? Was that the purpose of the experiment?
Yeah, they wanted to look at the dynamics of evolution, the repeatability of it, and the
why are they not seeing that?
Phenotypic and genotypic changes.
Great. So why are they not seeing that? If the purpose of it was to see evolution and they're not seeing evolution, well, I think you was up here the other day, so you know degradation is not evolution. I understand that they're going to claim that,
So,
but I'm not interested in
what you
having
are-
another thing. Hold on. I'm not interested in having another debate where people constantly show me losing information and then claiming that that's how we all got here.
What are you claiming is degradation?
The Linsky experiment.
Are you
It's
claiming
not gaining information.
Are you claiming that the citrate stuff is what the degradation is? Yeah, that's just
It
that's
already
just
had the-
not that's not what the Linsky experiment shows.
It already had the ability to digest citrate, right?
It had a specific gene that gave it the ability to digest it, but it wasn't something that the organism
It could do anaerobically. I understand that. So what happened is they had that duplication got under a
duplication.
promoter gene. Okay, there's no new information in there. So it didn't. When people say it started eating glucose citrate in an oxygenated environment, what happened is that the transfer proteins, because they don't have mouths like us, their transfer proteins allow in glucose and allows in citrate. In oxygen, the transfer proteins create a specific shape that allows in the glucose to eat as fuel. And when there's no oxygen present, it changes the shape of the transfer protein to allow in citrate. That genetic switch, if you will, that goes from glucose to citrate, oxygen and an oxygen, that devolved, that quote unquote degraded. The switch got broke in one position. So yes, it started eating citrate in an oxygenated environment, but one, there's no new information in that. And two, it already had the ability to digest citrate. And three, they're losing their flagellum.
So
they're literally degrading.
So this is where I have a problem with that. Is you're saying that is degradation, is this switch to a different promoter. It's not that something's being turned on in a specific way. It's going after a promoter that this organism is constantly using. So you have this constant stream of this promoter being activated. So you're going to develop this transporter over and over and over again, and you're going to gain that ability to metabolize citrate. That's not degradation in any way. Like that's where I don't understand.
It is degrading, brother.
That is not
Are they losing their
degradation.
flagellum? Are they losing their flagellum?
We're talking about the citrate stuff.
This is the same organism, identically the same. They are degrading over time.
But
If
you
they
keep
keep
saying-
going at the rate they are, they're going to go extinct. Look how great they're evolving.
You keep saying that. Yeah, actually, if you look at it, they are doing much better within the specific environment than they were
In this specific
early on.
environment.
Yes.
That's just like me saying, okay, there's a bunch of cops here to handcuff me and I've cut off my arms. So in this very specific environment of the cops not being able to handcuff me, I'm doing great. Look how much I'm evolving.
See,
Yes, they're doing great for the very select scenario that you are. If you take these things out and put them in the wild, they unalive.
Yeah. But the difference
Yeah.
is this thing
They're
has been
evolving.
for 88,000 generations has been in the same environment. So yes, it is
All
going
right,
to
so
adapt
it's
to that environment because it's not like
80,000, not 88.
somehow it's over and over and over again. These organisms are adapting to the environment in which they are living and have always lived in.
By losing
That is
information.
not losing your arms.
brother. All right, I don't. Again, no. You can say I'm running if you want to or not. I don't care. I'm not interested in another conversation to where we give me information gain. Linsky experiment is not information gain. Okay, give
is
me
not-
information gain.
it is
Don't
not
show me
degradation.
degradation and then claim that it's evolution.
It is not
Okay,
degradation.
well, I just-
you keep claiming
okay, well-
degradation, and you're just completely
All right,
wrong
brother.
about that.
Okay, I'm just completely wrong, except you just openly admitted in front of everyone in here that if we take these things and put them back in the wild, they unalive because they're losing their flagellum. I guess losing
Not
information
because
as
they're
far as
losing their
losing
flagellum.
your ability to move and go hunt your food is not degradation to you.
It doesn't need to hunt its food because it's always available to it.
I
Because
don't
they're
care.
constantly,
I don't care.
Every
It's still.
single day.
I don't care
putting
what it
in a
needs,
new
brother. I don't
environment
care.
where it has
All right, I'm
its
going to try
food.
again, man. So here we go. Now the conversation's getting to a point now where it's starting to get old. It's right. We're just going over the same thing. I need information gain. Don't show me existing information. Don't claim that the Linsky experiment is doing this great thing and then openly admit that if you put them back in the wild, they unalive. If they're evolving, I need to see some genetic information gain. Can you give me an example of that?
You're just-
Please don't
you're
use
not
degradation.
listening. You're
All
not
right,
listening.
I know I'm not listening. Have a good day, okay, brother? So frustrating talking to you guys. Y'all get stuck on your paper. You get stuck on your paper and you say, you know what? This is my talking points. This is what I'm going to go with. The Linsky experiment is clearly gaining information. And I go, okay, how? It's literally losing information. If we put it back out in the wild, it unalive. lives because it's losing its flagellum, it can't go hunt. Yeah, I agree with that, but that's evolving. No, it's not. It's not evolving. Did it gain any new traits or abilities? No, it already had the ability to digest citrate before. Like I said, you guys are free to say that I'm running. Go make a video of it. Tell everybody creation, flood, and end times ran from the debate, and I'll let everybody decide on actually who's running from the debate. Repeating the same thing over and over again and just claiming that that's gain is not contending with the argument.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
All right, what we got?
Alright, is it my turn?
Yeah, your turn. What's up, brother?
Alright. Basically, first of all, I am a woman, just to clarify.
Okay, young lady, how are
What makes
you?
you think... I'm good, thanks. What makes you think evolution is false?
I don't see any genetic information gain. Now, when I say evolution, I believe in micro. I just don't have enough room to put everything up here, obviously. So I believe in microevolution. I believe in adaptation. I believe in mutations and things of this nature. But I do not see any genetic information gain. So I do not believe in macroevolution.
If they teach evolution in school, then why are they teaching students to believe in something that is false?
I don't know. They do this all the time with evolution through embryology. This was a lie that was told 150 years ago. The guy was placed on trial for lying, and yet it's still in the textbooks today. He drew pictures of the embryonic cells in their different stages and said, "Look, we all evolved from a fish." Do you know that they're still teaching people today that humans have gill slits in the womb? And this was literally a lie that was proven wrong 150 years ago. So I don't know why people teach lies, but I mean, the guy was literally placed on trial by his university. It's not like it was a university trial. It wasn't like a court. He got placed on a disciplinary trial at his university because he literally just made these drawings up. And he lied about it, because we can go in now and we can actually take photographs of the embryos and they do not look like a fish. And there is a Netflix documentary, or it might be on Amazon. I think it's on Amazon Prime. The documentary is called, quote, Our Inner Fish. And it's called Haeckel. Ernest Haeckel was his name. They use his drawings, and again, I can show you actual photographs compared to his drawings. He made it up, lied about it, and they're still using it. So to answer your question outright, why do people use lies to teach? I have no idea. You'd have to ask them as to why they're lying about it.
So I do have one question. I just joined.
Well, hold on 1 second, brother. Let the young lady finish her point, and I don't want to skip anybody. That'd be rude. If you want to hop in on topic, I don't mind, but let's let the young lady finish up her thought process there. Was that it, or did you want to rebut that or anything? See,
can you
Scrap,
hear me?
I'm going to you. Yeah, I can hear you now.
What? Alright, because, sorry, my internet just cut out for basically the whole bit you were talking. I'm really sorry.
No problem. Did you hear what I said?
I caught some of it, but a little bit, but I'm not really...
All right. Long story short, I can't say as to why people teach lies. That would be a question you'd have to ask them. Hey, why are you teaching lies?
All right. Okay. And my other point was, if evolution is false, then how come that our ancestors never evolved? How come we're not all microorganisms still? How come we've evolved from monkeys and apes into different species of humans, and now we're this species of human?
Well,
how come?
That's a logical fallacy. You're begging the question. You're literally stating that why do you say evolution is false? Because we came from monkeys. That you're making a claim that it's real without providing any evidence.
No, that is my evidence.
I'm contending
we evolved from micro.
So your evidence of evolution is saying that we evolved. Can you give me some actual evidence other than just a statement of saying that, hey, we've evolved, so therefore evolution is true? Let me give you an example, right? I'll make a claim. Here's my claim. I think what the Bible says about the flood is true. I think the Bible says that the flood was a worldwide event, right? So for me to support that claim, then I would say hydrologic sorting, polystrata fossils, dinosaur bone beds, soft tissue, and DNA fragments being found in dinosaurs fit the flood model. These are all evidence, in my opinion, that that support my claim that the flood, as far as what the Bible says about it, is literally true. So that's me making the claim, and then I've just supported the claim by showing you those things. And then we can contend with the evidence if you'd like to do that, but that's me supporting the claim. So you've made a claim that evolution is true. So therefore, you can't say evolution is true because we did this. You have to give me the evidence, right, to support your claim. Are you still there? Or did your internet cut out again? All right. So if I'm going to...
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
All right. Sorry. Okay, I fixed my internet now. You cut out for a lot of it, but I get what you're saying. I kind of caught the end of it. My evidence of evolution is the fact that we've evolved from microorganisms, because it's not like we were just spawned on the Earth. That's not how it works.
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming. Okay. Thank you for the conversation. Your internet sounds like it's cutting out a little bit too much for us to have the conversation. So give me a follow, pay attention to these things, and then
can
I try
for
what?
like just a minute? I think I fixed it now.
Okay. So I'm also trying to be nice because you're making a claim, but you're not supporting the claim. So when I say evidence, give me the evidence then, not just saying that it happened. Give me some evidence that I can contend with you on. What's your best evidence of evolution? All right. I appreciate you coming, okay? I'm just going to move on to the next guest. Give me a follow. Come up next time, and we'll try to contend together. I do appreciate you coming, but either your internet wasn't ready or you wasn't ready, and we'll go over there next time. SCHL. I can't see the rest of your name.
It's Schlerp. What's up?
Schlerp, what's up, brother?
So I'm gonna be honest. This was more so about the Genesis discussion earlier, less about the evolution aspect of it. The argument was made that the order was birds first, then lizards. However,
reptiles, right?
Genesis 1 contradicts Genesis 2 somewhat in a way. So I think it's a little bit safe to say that we may not be able to read Genesis as literally as the other books.
Well, it doesn't contradict it. It zooms in.
Well, can I show my example?
Sure.
So in Genesis 1, it states that the plants were made on day 3, and humans were made on day 6. In Genesis 2, when Adam and Eve are created, I believe it's Genesis 2:5. It is stated that not one shrub or plant.
You cut out. I think you went off the app, brother. I can't hear you when you go off the app.
Oh, my bad. I was trying to read the exact.
Genesis 2, verse 5. It says, "And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was no man to till the ground."
All right. And I was also curious about later on in Genesis 2, when Adam and Eve, or when God creates animals in front of Adam and has him name them. If God created the land animals before the humans, why would he need to create them then?
That's why why this is not a contradiction, right? So in Genesis 1, he talks about how he made creation. And the second one, he's talking about he made these come up out of the ground. So it says in the Bible that the birds are made from the water, right? That's Genesis 1. But in Genesis 2, he calls them to come up out of the ground. This is not the entirety of the birds. This is one single bird so that Adam can name it and then it can fly off. But there's no contradiction. It's not saying that all of the birds were made this way. It's just saying that this was directly in front of Adam. That's why Satan had to go to Eve instead of Adam, because Adam saw God literally create. There wasn't no trick in Adam. That's why the serpent went to Eve, because Eve was created after that. She didn't see God, quote unquote, create anything.
So I guess my question then would be, if Genesis 1 doesn't highlight the exact history and instead highlights the method used to create, then how can you use Genesis 1 to disprove evolution if it only shows the means of creation, not the history of creation?
Well, when you say history, each day is preference with the singular evening and morning. So that's not long periods of time. So how would you say that that's not history when it's saying this happened on day 1, this happened on day 2, this happened on day 3, and literally these are not long periods of time. So how do you support the claim of saying that's not history? You can say you disagree with it, but how can you make the claim that's not history though?
When you're using the argument that Genesis 1 claims that birds were made before reptiles, therefore birds were made before reptiles, so therefore birds could not evolve from reptiles. Yet you're also saying that Genesis 1 isn't literally talking about the creation. Like it's not talking about the...
So is your contention that God made everything the way that it was, and he made birds and reptiles, and also some of the reptiles evolved into birds?
I mean, I'm kind of up in the air with religious stuff, but I think that it's a possibility.
That would be another line of thinking. I think that's. Please don't take this as disrespectful. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I think that's kind of just a shot in the dark. God created everything the way that it was, and then also reptiles also went into birds. The same type of birds that was already here. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
Do you
sorry, I'm
have
not
a,
the greatest at wording my thoughts, so give me a split second.
I got you, brother. I'll come back to you. Who was in here next? Chris, what's up, man?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Hanging in there, brother.
That's good. I want to first off, I want to say I agree with everything you're saying. But my question was like more like theological, I guess you can say. And
Okay.
so what's your stance on when like skeptics say like, the Bible was rewritten, since we don't have that original transcript? Like what would you
Yes.
say to that, as far as the Genesis accounts go?
Yeah, great question. So I would use textual criticism to show that. Well, first of all, I'd ask a clarifying question: what do they mean by change? So I agree that the Bible has been quote unquote changed. It had to be, right? I don't speak Hebrew, and I don't speak Aramaic, and I don't speak Greek. So if the Bible was never quote unquote changed, then clearly I couldn't read it, right? So if they mean, what do they mean by changed? So that's the first clarifying question that I would ask. And clearly most people imply that when they mean change, they mean it's different from the original, meaning that the stories have changed. And then I would use textual criticism to show them that, no, it hasn't. The Bible actually hasn't changed. The Bible was what they call an open transmission. We can compare this to another source that has a closed transmission, like the Quran. The Quran is a closed transmission. The Bible was an open transmission, meaning that anything that in the Quran is called the Uthmanic revision. A caliph, a person that was in charge called Uthman, they were arguing about the scriptures in the Quran. So Uthman said, bring me every copy that you got, every copy of the Quran. And then he said, this is what the Quran's going to say. And he literally burnt everything else. So you have to believe by faith that Uthman got it right. Now, obviously, if you're a Muslim, you're going to say, hey, look, it's divinely inspired. God worked through Uthman. It's not a bad argument if you're a religious person, but how are you going to show a non-religious person that Uthman was divinely inspired, because literally anything that you could put to the test got burnt? So you have to go with what he says. However, the Bible is an open transmission, meaning that Christians copied it and copied it and copied it and copied it and copied it, and then I gave you my copies and you copied it, and you gave your copies to someone else and they copied it, and it literally went all over the Mediterranean there, all over the known world. So we can come back 1,000 years later and we can look at the copies that were, the 400 copy in line. We can look at those that went to Egypt, and we can look at those that went to Asia. We can look at those that went to Africa. We can look at those, or Ethiopia. We can look at those that went to the Vatican, and we can compare these. And if the Bible was like what mainstream people like to call the telephone game, meaning that all these people added these changes and everything into it, we could see that because you got all the copies around. In other words, they didn't have means of communicating with each other unless it was face-to-face back then, obviously, or unless you're writing a letter. So if John changed it over here in Ethiopia, then he wouldn't have the ability to let Thomas know over here in Africa, right, or in Asia, right? So if he changed it, we could see it because we could be able to compare the two. And so the fact that we have literally tens of thousands of copies of the New Testament, we can compare them and show that the Bible actually hasn't been changed. And then with the Old Testament, we can compare it to things like the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff, and we can see that, again, the Bible hasn't been changed.
No, that honestly, that helps my question big time, because I was like really wondering, because I'm a Christian too, and I'm like really trying to find the answers to all this stuff, and so that's great.
I got you.
I appreciate it.
Now that's yeah, man. That's a 60,000 foot overview. We can really go down deep because there's claims that the longer ending of Mark's not original and the woman caught in
Right.
adultery, and I got answers and stuff for those too. But it just depends on how deep you want to go.
Well, I mean, that was pretty much I know you have a lot of people on here, but that was pretty much the meat of what I was trying to go for. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man,
I
no
was
problem.
going to say
On
something about that topic.
Sure. On my
briefly,
page, you can go. I did a teaching on has the Bible been changed, so you're free to go to my just and scroll down until you find it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Ray,
On
you said it's
TikTok?
on topic. What you got? Yeah, it's on. I got it here on TikTok. It's it's
cool.
called Has the Bible Been Changed? It's one of my videos.
Awesome, man. I'll check it out. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, man.
It's a question on the topic. Do
Okay.
you have an authoritative figure in your life that you take advice from and how you interpret the Bible?
I've got people that have helped me through my walk, so I would say yes.
So, in the same line of thinking, can we admit that there is an objective right way to read the Bible?
That's a hard question to answer. A right way to read the Bible? What is that? What do you mean by that?
There's a right way to interpret the Bible.
Well, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say it like this. There's what they call dogmatic. There's dogmatic teachings, right? Those are the things that you can't disagree on and then call yourself a Christian, right? For example, you cannot disagree. You cannot say I'm a Christian and I believe that Jesus did not unalive for my sins and raise again from the third day. That's a dogmatic teaching. And then there's some things that the Bible's not necessarily clear on. Again, the Bible was written to us. It wasn't written for us. And the Bible it doesn't tell us everything about everything always. The Bible doesn't tell me how to tie my shoes, so I got to go to an outside source.
I don't know.
That's fine. Yeah. So that's my point. I wouldn't say that there's some things that you can argue about, that you can debate about clearly, but then there's some things that are dogmatic. Christians cannot argue or debate on the dogmatic stuff, but some of the other things like, eschatology and other things like this, then clearly there's some room for them to disagree again, because the Bible's not dogmatic on it.
But how would you come to that conclusion if you didn't have a voice telling you how it was to be read in those specific situations? Like the Gospels. Why do we believe that that it's important that the Gospels happened historically and literally as they do, if it were not for a particular way of reading it? Why is it crucial that Jesus actually died and resurrected if there's not a authoritative figure of interpretation that tells you and has studied it for long periods of time and says this is the way you ought to read it?
Yeah, but I don't. It's kind of weird on it. What you mean by I don't need a guru, right? I don't need somebody. When I read the Bible that says that Jesus rose again on the third day, I can read that. And the Bible, it's got some parts in it where you can go down deep and stay down long, but it's also where a layman can read it and understand it. So I don't think that there's this hidden meaning. I think when it says that Jesus rose again on the third day, it literally means that he rose again on the third day. And I think if you're interpreting anything other than that, than what it says, I think you need a guru in an effort to interpret that. And that's clearly antithetical to the Bible, because the Bible literally says it's not up for any private interpretation.
Yes, but the belief of that, even you saying that, like you just said there, that if in certain situations you might need a guru if you were a person, that opens the door, even though it's a small acceptance, it changes the conversation that we're having. Because now we're talking.
But no, it doesn't.
about
You're
how
free
there
to
is an objective
disagree
right way to
with
read
them.
something.
But no, brother,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't. You're free to disagree with them. Like we can talk and say, hey, what do you get out of this meaning? What do you think here? There's plenty of room to do that in the Bible. But I can also disagree with you and say, no, that's not what it says. So
then why are we having this conversation? It's to get to a definitive answer. To get to a
sure, man. But I don't want to sound
answer of truth.
disrespectful. It just sounds like you're starting to go off into some weird theological stuff that it just doesn't apply here. There's no particular
I
way
disagree. I
that you
think it
have to
implies-
quote unquote read the Bible.
Or it applies here. Because this is exactly what we're
Well,
talking about.
Okay, well,
This is exactly
we'll
what
have to
we're
agree to disagree then. All right. Well, I just think that we agree to disagree. I don't think that I need anybody. We can talk about it, but I don't think that I don't need anybody to tell me that it actually means this, that, and the third when I can actually read it for myself.
And you can't do that, to be honest. You can't try to back up and skirt away from something and then throw kind of one little thing in there as a Christian. You can't really do that. I'm going to be
Do
honest
what?
with you, because there seems to be a lot of times on these platforms that, for the most part, you're doing all right. And then there's a little moment where you have the opportunity to relinquish and show mercy, but you just got to put that in there. You got to put that little word in there. And I'm
Ryan,
sorry, dude. It's
Ryan,
not
you've been up here
Christian.
I know you're saying I'm not Christian by literally letting you talk.
No, I'm saying
If-
that action
if I was-
is not a Christian action.
Well, that's fair. Again, I think you're welcome to think that I would disagree with you. I'm saved. I'm not salt. So if you're coming in here and thinking that this Christian's going to pamper you and be nice to you, I'm not in here for that. So I think you need to watch some of my
Even
lives.
that
You'll see
right
that I'm
there.
actually.
Even
Yeah,
that
I
right
know.
there.
Let's. All right. Well, here, check this out. Check how Christian this is. I don't have the buckets to soak up all of the crybaby tears in here, man. I'm in here to share Christ with people, and if you don't, and talk about evolution. And so,
A
if
real
I hurt your
evangelist wouldn't
feelings,
speak
you
this
can
way.
cry on somebody else's life, man. I just don't have
This
the
is
room to
this
soak
is a
up all of
poor
those
form of
tears.
evangelization. This is a
I know.
poor form of evangelization.
It may be to you, brother, but again, I'm saved. I'm not
It does
soft.
more
okay?
damage than good. It does more damage
Well,
than good.
it may be, but I think that the fact that I got 122 people in here and they're still in here, some people like my content. I'm not trying
A
to
lot
be
of people
rude to
listen
you.
to
I
Hitler,
think
too.
I've been nice to you. I've let you stay up here the longest, and I don't mind it getting contentious. And I will show you love when it's need. But if you're also getting ready to step into a problem, I'm going to say, "Hey, dummy, you're getting ready to go to hell. I'm trying to save you from that." Sorry, if you don't like it, it is what it is. Jesus chased out people with a stick, right? He turned over the
chased
tables,
out the Pharisees.
slapped him with a stick. That's right. And you would be sitting in the corner going, "Wow, Jesus, you're being really mean right now. That's not Christian of you to
It's not
slap
true.
those people with a
It's not
stick."
true. You're the one with the authority in this situation.
All right, man. Well, like I said, if you're done crying, you're free to stay up here, but I'm not just going to do all this crying on here,
Look
bro.
at that language, dude. I'm telling you, the language is crazy.
All right. I appreciate the language. Have a good day, okay, buddy? The language. My telling you to stop crying, the language is just ridiculous. Angle. Is angle or four or what? How do you say it?
Why does everyone say angle? Like, bro.
Well, because you got it's the L in front of it, or it's either a 4 or it's a 5. So it's a little confusing. That's probably why everybody says it. But what you got, man?
Oh, no, it's not. It's
No.
just angel V.
Okay, but yeah, you see how the L could be a Roman numeral, so it could be 4.
Okay.
What you got, man?
I only have about
Yeah, I want to know
15
what's your
minutes.
argument or proposition for why evolution is false.
Right. So I believe in microevolution. I think that's testable and observable, but any of the evolutions outside of that, I think, is all inferred.
Based off?
How
Based
how
off
so? There's no based on there's I don't see any evidence for macroevolution.
I got some. But you made a claim. You made the claim that macroevolution is false. You got any evidence or reasoning for why it's false?
Yeah, I'm taking the negative on that. So the fact that I don't see any evidence
So you're
for it
saying
would be
because
my
there's no
positive
evidence
claim.
means it doesn't exist. That's an appeal to ignorance.
Well, okay, well, if it's real, then I would need to see genetic information gain. And so when people bring
define
me
genetic
evidence for
information.
evolution, genetic would have to be passed on to your children, new information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA, and it'd have to be gained from
No, I
something
asked you
that
to
wasn't there
define genetic
before.
information.
I literally just did. Are you okay?
No,
I'll do
you
it again.
said-
I'll do it again. Genetic information. Genetic because it needs to be passed on from generation to generation. Now I'm going to define information as far as new functions, new structures, new code, new DNA. And now I'm going to
Oh, that's
now I'm
actually a
going to
logical
define
fallacy. I
game.
forgot the name.
Brother, you're just, I know. Have a good day,
So
man. Have a good day. You waited up here for all of that. You literally asked me to define it and then interrupted me in the middle of defining it. You don't want to have a conversation? Because I know you're not listening to the definition because I defined it and then you said I didn't define it. You waited all the way up here for that to do that. If you're interested in a conversation, then you don't interrupt the people when they're answering the question that you ask. It's very, very weird. Maddie P, what's up? Maddie P, you're teacupping means you went off the app. I can't hear you. All right. Perpuza? Am I saying that right?
Perpza.
What's up, man?
Call me Perp.
Dang, it's not working.
Oh wait, his is working. You can go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. I thought I was talking. My apologies. I wanted to know what kind of Christian you associated yourself with. What denomination?
I would consider myself a Bible-believing, non-denominational Christian.
Well, that's fair. You said you don't believe in micro, or you do believe in micro, but not macro and large-scale evolution. And you said because what was that? The issue of possibly gaining of genetic information?
Yes.
So, is it not possible that certain traits and genetic codes could combine and create mutations that would be quote unquote new? Or I don't want to say new because it's not that it's new. It's A and B coming together to appear as C, even though it's just AB. You get that? I mean,
Well,
that's
I'm-
kind of,
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand. But I think you would agree when I define new information, like the information to create an arm is not in a single-celled organism. So it's not just taking existing information and then just mutating existing information, and therefore that information to have an arm was always there to begin with, and it just depends on which way you put the letters. That's not true because, again, the information for my arm is not in a single-celled organism. So that has to be gained.
that's sort of understandable, but the common understanding of evolution is that the single-celled organisms would combine and mutate across thousands of other genetic pieces and bits of deoxyribonucleic acid, so then it's not just a single-celled organism, it's two, they combine, and then it's four, they combine, and it builds up. But I'm not going to get into biology semantics.
I got you. So I got you. I do agree with you that if macroevolution was true, then the mechanism would be microevolution. I understand the theory, and I think that it's well thought out that small changes over time would get you to the large changes. I completely understand that. My only problem is I need to see examples that's testable and observable that's not inferred, right? So, and I'm not even saying it has to turn in from one animal to another. That would be a weird standard. But like, for example, you said single-celled organisms going into multicellular organisms. Well, why don't we see that? We don't see single-cellular organisms going into multicellular organisms.
Well, that's because it's the macro scale. It's a multi-million-year process. Let me just ask, if you consider yourself to be non-denominational, Bible, God-fearing, that's all great. How many years old do you think the Earth is? Because, there's a little discussion among some folks on that.
Honest answer is I don't know. The Bible doesn't say. I think there's room for age to be in there. So I don't know. I would say that I would probably tend to believe that it's less than 10,000, but I wouldn't believe that it's millions or billions. Although I do think that God created these things with the aspect of time in it, obviously.
Yeah, because my understanding, one of the smartest woman I ever met, smartest person I ever met, she's got a master's degree in chemical engineering and a minor in physics. Incredible woman. But her belief is that, science is the means by which God creates and does things. So to create light, he developed the photon and so on and so forth. And you also said that some of the Bible is absolutely dogmatic. You have to believe that the Lord your God, Jesus Christ, died, descended into hell, and rose after third day in accordance with the scriptures. But I do recall you mentioning that some things are a little bit more ambiguous. So, is it not possible that 7 days was not totally literal, and that it was maybe metaphorical for billions of years? Because if God, which he is, in my opinion, I believe that God is an unending, total, eternal being, is it not possible that a day is different meaning to him? I mean, the Bible is written to us, not for us, so maybe it's a different understanding.
Right. Yeah, great question. So could I be wrong about this? And yes, that's why I try to leave room open.
Before you answer, there's someone in the chat here who said that hell hadn't been created yet. Jesus is God. That's an eternal being in the Trinity. Eternal meaning unending. That means he's been around since before hell, and he can descend into it as he wishes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like a little questionable there. But yeah, please. Sorry.
I got you. Yeah. No problem. So could I be wrong? Yes. But this is where I think people need to, if I get to heaven and Jesus slaps me on the back of the head and say, hey, that's not what I was teaching, then first of all, this is hypothetical. I wouldn't care. I'm in heaven, right? I'm going to be with him for eternity. So who cares? It's not a salvation issue. But if I'm in my mindset thinking about it now, I would say it's kind of your fault, because you literally said it's not possible for me to get long periods of days out of those. And the reason why is because the way that it's written. The Hebrew word yom is day. That can mean a long period of time. It can. Like if I was to say me and you knew each other since back in the day. Well, by the context, you would understand that does not mean one day. I'm talking about a long period of time, as long as we've known each other since back in the day. But each day in the creation sequence, with the exception of day 7, each day is literally preferenced with a singular evening and a singular morning. So there's just no way to get, unless you're going to say the days, and the days were 6,712 hours long instead of the normal 24-hour day we have here. You just cannot get long periods of time out of that, because you have a singular evening and a singular morning.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm a Catholic, so I do believe in the good book quite fairly. But from what I understand, the Old Testament especially, the Israeli, or I should say the Hebrew understanding of history is less the modern understanding of absolute, literal, word for word, minute for minute, sword slash for sword slash retelling. It's sometimes a little bit metaphorical, so that way the point is gotten across, maybe with a little embellishment. For instance, somewhere in the Old Testament, I think it's Exodus, there are sheep that look at spotted sticks, and as a result, they birth spotted sheep, so their wool is not white.
Well, it's
spotted.
not just looking at it; they got to drink the water too, and there's plenty of scientific reasons. I don't deal with that because I hadn't studied it. I wouldn't mind it, but I would need some time to study it. But I've heard refutations on that. But
from
it's
what
not
I
just looking at it.
understand, it is a pseudoscience of the time that is disproven now, because we're not birthing spotted sheep on a regular basis. But you could also argue that at the same time, God's providence would allow it to happen because he can do anything, an all-powerful, all-knowing being.
And I can understand them not being able to explain it in the Bible. Like if I read it today, I couldn't explain how they did it. I can understand that, but there's a difference between not being able to interpret something because you don't understand it today, then saying the exact opposite happened. There's a difference in that. You're free to say I don't understand it, but you couldn't say, well, actually days mean long periods of time. Or where are you getting that from?
It's
Because
not
the
that I'm
day
saying
says-
it definitively does mean that. I'm saying that it
No, I know.
Because, I mean,
Okay.
an example of
If
just
it could
time,
say that, where are you getting that from? If it could say that, where are you getting it?
I think it's in Samuel. No, sorry. My Old Testament's a little shaky. I'm not so great. It's been a couple years since I've thoroughly gone through it all. But in the old, forever means forever, all eternity, right? They say that in Revelation that those of evil will burn in hell for all eternity, forever. But it also says in the Old Testament that a slave shall serve his master forever. Now, he can't serve or he could, in theory, serve his master in the afterlife, but forever doesn't become for all eternity at that point. It is the same word, but it switches meanings. It becomes for the rest of that slave's life. So I'm just saying that...
Where's that at? I don't know if that's... I don't know. I haven't heard that.
I can find it and get back to you in a minute.
I'll look it up while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, my chosen, if you care, my chosen version of the Bible is NRSV UE because that one, in my opinion, gives the clearest and concise. And what's the
Well,
word?
that's
It's
yeah,
a
that's
scholar's
we'll
it's a
have a problem
scholar's
with that.
book. That's it's a little different because I'm not real King Jamesy.
Yeah, that would, in my opinion, though, that's going to be a problem. So your version of the Bible might say a lot of things, but I would contend with that a different translation. They're probably using the Alexandrian, and I can show you that's you got major problems with that. It changes day of Christ to day of Lord. So when I say the Bible hasn't been changed, clearly I'm talking about it hadn't been. It's only the 20th century where these individuals are trying to change stuff. So if you have a newer Bible version today, and it's going off of the Alexandrian because they think they're quote unquote rediscovered manuscripts, then you're going to have some problems because it changes day of Lord, day of Christ, and it adds words in there. It doesn't change the stories overall,
kind of
but
implies
it does.
that Christ
it does
is not Lord there. I mean, the day of the Christ means Lord, Christos in Greek.
Yeah, but like, for example, you got very specific 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I won't go too deep, but 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is talking about the rapture. It says, "Now I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together unto him, that you not be soon shaken in mind or troubled by spirit, even if you receive a letter from us, as the day of Christ is at hand." Okay, day of Christ is rapture, day of the Lord is wrath. So if you change the day of Christ to the day of the Lord, then you've literally just changed the context from, and this is what happens with newer Bible translations. They think they're not changing because in an effort for you to get a new patent on something, you have to change it by like 20%. So they think they're changing a word that's the same meaning, and they don't realize the day of the Lord is God's wrath. The day of Christ is the rapture. So just by you changing the day of Christ to the day of Lord, you've literally changed the rapture into his wrath. So you totally mess up your eschatology if you go off of a Bible version by somebody changing it, not realizing that they think they're making a minute change by changing the day of the Lord to the day of Christ, and they're actually changing. They're making a huge change in eschatology, and they didn't realize it.
Well, I'll have to look into that. I do find that interesting. You said it's based off the Alexandrian, but from what I understand, NRSV UE is approved by the Catholic Church, and I know you follow the good book specifically, and you're non-denominational, and you mentioned that you had people that pointed you on the path towards righteousness and kept you going on the straight and narrow. But this is why I do believe it's very important that there is a teaching authority, a magisterium, someone who is a scholar and dedicated their life to the book. That's the importance of priests, because it's someone who believes in the cause so much that they would choose not to marry or have children and decide that the church is who they would marry. It's who they would dedicate their life to.
Right, and I don't want to. I'm not interested in throwing rocks with inside the tent. So
fair.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have much points else, but I mean, if you're content with agreeing to disagree and saying that maybe some science is correct, maybe some is not, and it's still just the means in which God creates and does things in the world, then.
Amen. I think science is correct. So I wouldn't say science is wrong. It's people's interpretation of the science.
Yeah,
I don't think,
That's why I said some science is, some science isn't. I mean, I saw someone in the chat say that 150 years ago, if you were sick, the standard process was leeches and bloodletting. That's medical sciences. Not everything's going to be correct because it comes as time comes with change and growth. But not everything's going to be totally correct. Maybe you're right, and in 100 years, 150 years, we'll see that evolution was incorrect, and it's this. Or maybe you're wrong, and it's a different kind of evolution, but it's like sort of correct. We don't really know. This is one of those material things that none of us are going to see, and then we're probably all going to die before. And
sure. Well, that's what I'm here for, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming, bud.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna head out. You have a wonderful day, man.
Thank you, bro. You too. Good conversation. Welcome back, brother. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Yeah. So far, so good.
Good, man. I just wanted to bring up, and without being interrupted, I want to bring up about 3-4 points. Two or three.
Hold on. I know you say you don't want to be interrupted, but I mean, come on, man. This is the shotgun method. When you throw so much stuff out there, I can't respond to it. It looks like If I try to respond to 1, 3, or 1, 2, and 4, then it looks like I forgot 3, and then it look like I don't know what I'm talking about.
I see.
So are you going to allow me to contend with them?
I'll list 2 examples of, like, in the past decade, these animals have evolved in a certain way.
Okay.
So tuskless elephants are being born at a rapid rate because of ivory hunting. You can look this up. This is true. The Hawaiian cricket lost their sound, becoming silent because of an invasive parasitic fly that was introduced to Hawaii. So I'll just stop right there without bringing up some other points I have. But just by that,
you've been in here long enough to know. Sure, but you've been in here long enough now to hear me say that degradation is not evolution, brother.
Can you describe?
That's literally losing
degradation?
it. Yeah, you just say that the elephants are losing their tusk. That's not information gain. They're clearly losing something.
What's degradation? Sorry, I must have a false.
Degrading, losing, degrading. Look, losing information. You're degrading.
Okay, I see that. Okay, what about apes using like stone tools? Now we see orangutans, chimpanzees going to war. You can look this up. There's a little chimpanzee war going on. We see orangutans.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Spears. Like, this has never been documented before. We see them using plant medicines. How is that not at least mind evolution?
Yeah, so I don't know that just because it's never been documented before doesn't mean that they wasn't doing it ahead of time. And then 2, when they use these things, you're talking about they use spears, they're not actually catching any fish. They don't get the concept of it. If I'm not mistaken, from correct me if I'm wrong, it's not something that I've studied deeply, but from what I understand is they saw man using spears and then get fish. So they understand stick and fish, but they can't put it together. So they don't know how to get the fish from the stick.
Now, this is a big one for me. Wolves, now their closest relative to the modern dog breed is the Chihuahua. And we know that there's been many, many breeds of dogs that have died out even in the past 200 years. So I'm very curious, because wolves have become all these dog breeds that you know today. Do you not believe that, or what's your take?
Yeah, that's micro. Yeah, that's microevolution. They took trait because, for example, like to take the wolf and get it to Chihuahua, then you take the 2 wolves, and this is how you do it, right? You take 2 wolves that are the smallest, right? Out of a wolf puppy breed, you take the smallest wolves, and you only allow them to mate with the smallest. And then out of their puppies, the smallest of them, you only allow them to mate with other small. And then out of the smallest of them, you're taking the trait of short legs and you're encouraging that trait, right?
But it's
there's no new information in that. You're literally taking existing information and you're making it work out, or you're discouraging it, right? And they're literally losing information, right? The Chihuahua is not superior to the wolf. It did not gain any information. And there's lots of traits that you had to lose in an effort to get to the Chihuahua. Now, you can take a trait and get more of the same trait. For example, you can take the wolf and you can do tests on the wolves and put some scents out and get the wolves, hide some honey buns in some leaves or something. And then the wolves that are able to find the honey buns the easiest, the fastest, have the greatest sense of smell. They probably have really strong receptors in their nose. You can only allow them to mate with other wolves that have really strong receptors in their nose. And eventually you will get a bloodhound out of that. But the trait of smelling, or having the receptors to smell good, was already there. There's no new information in that. You took the receptor gene that already existed and you made it work out. I believe in that, but that's not new information.
But I almost feel like that could apply to almost any animal, as you see all these birds develop different beak styles from continent to continent, and we can discover through their blood and DNA that they are somewhat related, if not almost the same bird. But it's just interesting. But I really do like your points, because I honestly don't think you're going to be able to fight these. I will say, with microevolution, I don't know how I feel about that. I just think like an entire species of insect losing its sound to not get attacked by a parasitic fly that's invasive to Hawaii, that does help them. And that is a sign that they completely changed. They grew smaller wings so they wouldn't make a sound. So they literally
changed, but they didn't gain any information. But part of evolution. Okay, so you claim that that's evolution, and I understand evolution claims that it's evolution, but if we're, evolutionists claim that, but if we're being intellectually honest, the math ain't mathin', brother. If I ask you, let's don't take this as condescending, but it helps put it in their perspective, right? Teacher, how did we get here? Well, little Johnny, we all started off as a single-celled organism, and then we lost everything, and that's why we're here today. Clearly, it doesn't make any sense, right? You can't keep showing me examples of degradation and then claim that we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, and every time I ask for evidence, you show me something losing information, right? Eventually, you need to show me some gain here. And the cricket, so what happened is you'll have a cricket that, and I don't know this specific example, if this is true or not, but I would make a prediction, and I might be wrong, but we'll see.
If you don't believe.
You might have, no, I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm saying I don't know if this is how it happened, but I'm going to make a prediction, right? You might have a 1 in 1,000 crickets that have inferior wings. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's their back legs that rub up against it, right? Or it's their, anyway, however it happens.
It's like their hind legs rub up against their wings and it creates a frequency.
Right. So their wings were inferior because 1 in a million crickets were born with subpar wings, meaning they had a problem where their wings didn't fully develop.
But it was to counteract this non-native fly, as Hawaii is one of the strictest places when it comes to what seeds and plants are coming in.
I understand that, brother. But here's my point. So
and it only happened when they needed it.
But they did not. I know, but they didn't evolve a new mechanism to deal with the flies. They literally lost the ability for their wings to connect to their legs because their wings are inferior. So you get 1 in a million cricket that has shriveled up wings, right? Now, normally this would die in the population because it can't sing a song for its mate to go mate with it, right? So normally these things would get outbred because the female cricket is going to look at it and go, I don't want him, because he can't sing the song that I want. Unfortunately, all of the good crickets unalived, and the only ones that the parasitic fly cannot eat are the ones that can't make any sound. They're not evolving. They're just surviving because it killed all the good ones.
That's an interesting perspective. All right, well, that's all I got to say here. I do appreciate your time, man.
Thanks. Before you roll out, with people I like to have good conversations, and maybe you already answered this earlier, and because I know you've been here once, but what do you know about Jesus, man? Because my whole purpose in this is trying to strengthen the faith of the Christians, or if you're not saved, I want to get you saved.
So I have a pretty long story, but I'll make it short. I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school until I was a sophomore in high school, and I always had doubts, man. But I'm very agnostic, and I pray, and I want to believe. That's something I tell people all the time. I want to believe. I want to believe. I really want to believe. But with the evidence and just the way my mind works, I just don't see that being the best possibility of at least the Christian God.
Well, you're an analytical person, and I respect that. I am. That's why I talk about science all the time. I'm very analytical. So with that being said, I'm not going to beat you over the head with it, but I would like to be the one that helps share Christ with you and bring you back if I could be. So give me a follow. And I would encourage you to look up the study of textual criticism. And I think if you put that same analytical process that you use when evaluating evolution and the answers that you've given in here, and you can contend with the argument, I think if you take that same mindset and put it towards textual criticism, I think you'll see that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. And I think you'll come back home, brother.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a blue-collar worker. I had a 14-hour-long day. I'm ready to kind of hit the hay and chill.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Man, God bless. Yes, sir. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Of course.
All right. Hey, y'all. What's up?
Sorry. This is
You're
literally my second time I've ever been on a live, but I love the whole conversation. You're very articulate. I'm enjoying this. All the things. I do have two things to say, actually, maybe three. So I started out as a very nature-based, what I would consider pagan, through most of my life until about 2 years ago. I experienced things that I can't explain other than God. I grew up, actually, my mom sent me to sent me to church. I didn't believe the things that I was taught. I had to find my own way. And now I'm in a whole other state of spiritual belief. It's insane. It's insane. I could give you so many examples. It's crazy. However, I do have a question, because I think that you are very tuned into this and you've obviously done much more spiritual research than I have.
Okay.
Do you think it's maybe, I don't know, is it, maybe the two aren't mutually exclusive? Maybe God is what we would call a scientist, and he was like, hey, if I do this and I watch it happen, and this is what's going to happen, because he knew. Do you think that's possible? I mean, I did forensics for years and years, so I've actually seen biological changes. I mean, obviously not as long as most, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But vestigial organs, they're the whole thing. So what's your opinion on this?
Ooh, good question. So could he have done it? Yeah, he could have. Also, can he divinely inspire a book to be written by man to show how he did it? And if he did that, can I test that? So to answer your question directly, yes, he could have. But I don't have any evidence that he did that. You just mentioned vestigial structures. What do you mean when you say that you've seen vestigial structures? You mean completely useless?
Well, I mean, over time, right? So we have, if you look at a horse's hoof, you see the vestigial digits, and in a whale, there's multiple. I'm not trying to take up too much of your time, but you see.
No, I got you.
Well,
so I contend a lot with the evolutionary argument of vestigial structures. So one, evolutionists they've lost this debate so bad. That's why I ask people what do they mean by it? Because the old definition of vestigial meant to be useless. That's what it meant. Because that really doesn't exist, they changed the definition now to say, well, it has a function. It just has a secondary function. Prime example would be the coccyx, right? They used to say that our coccyx is that they're monkey tails, and they say it's vestigial in humans. Well, because they found out, no, it's not. It's anchor points for our reproductive organs. Now they're saying, well, it used to be a monkey's tail, and now it has this secondary function of holding our reproductive organs. The whale, you mentioned the whale. Now, there's only two options to this. Please don't take any offense to it. I don't mean anything to you. But when people say that the whale has a vestigial, like leg bones, there's only two options with this. Either they're ignorant of whale anatomy, and it's okay to be ignorant. I'm not saying they're stupid. Ignorant just means that they don't know something. And there's plenty of things that I'm ignorant about. So either they're ignorant of whale anatomy, or they are lying to you in an effort to push an agenda. Those are not vestigial legs. They are anchor points for the whale's reproductive organs. The whale needs them for its, I'll just say, reproductive organs, for the muscles to attach to it so that it can make baby whales. They're not vestigial legs. And either the people that have told you that are ignorant about that, or they're lying in an effort to push evolution, because they're not vestigial. Our appendix is not vestigial. It's part of our immune system. But even if I was to grant you and say, you know what, vestigial organs are a thing, it's absolutely true, that's an example of losing information. Like there's certain fish that if you put them inside of a cave, they start to lose their eyes. They're not the same as vestigial because they wasn't completely useless, but okay, this fish population is starting to lose their eyes. that's degradation. That's not information gain. That's not evolution. They're losing information.
I do hear what you're saying, absolutely. I did read an article not long ago. I wish I had a site and a source for this, but I read about what our spleen used to be attributed to. Have you heard about this?
I know the appendix, but I don't know about the spleen. What did the spleen used to be attributed to?
Apparently, before we had like modern day phones, communication that we could quickly get to each other. Please look it up because I'm going to ruin this. But apparently it had we had a more in-depth ability to feel, see, hear things that we weren't necessarily present to. And then as time went on, it degraded, which is why I think what you're saying is interesting.
Yeah. So even if I was to grant that if that's happening, then that would be, for example, let me put it this way. If a man takes testosterone shots, right? So a male's testosterone is produced in his testes, right? So if a man takes an outside source of that testosterone, then the body no longer has to produce the testosterone, so your testes shrivel up, right? Mm-hmm. Now imagine that's all they did, and you could still reproduce. Would the testes eventually go out because they're getting that source of testosterone from an outside source? Yes, but that's still an example of degradation, and it's not vestigial as far as it's not useless. It absolutely has a function. You just supplemented that function through something else, so it's not needed. But that's still an evidence of clear degradation. That's not how we evolve, right?
What do you think about, so I studied quite a lot about Darwin, obviously, and the islands. What do you think about that?
It's funny. Are you familiar they went back to the Galapagos Islands to restudy Darwin's finches?
Not in the last 10 years, since I've been out of school.
Yeah, so they went back to Darwin's island, and what they actually determined is the finch's beak changes based on the rain. So it's the nutrition that they get from the nuts, basically. So if there is a drought, then the nuts are harder to crack, so the finch's beaks get harder. They get thicker and bigger so that they can crack the harder nuts. If there's a lot of rain, then the nuts are moist, and the finches can easily crack the nuts because the nuts are nice and moist. So then their beaks get smaller and thinner. So it has nothing to do with quote unquote evolution. You can say that's microevolution, which I would agree. It's changing to your environment, but it's based on the rainfall. It has nothing to do with them turning into something else. So the problem is that when Darwin looked at the finches and the beak sizes on the Galapagos Island, he rightly deduced that the beaks change. He wrongly deduced that therefore, because they change, they have a universal common ancestor as far as a single-celled organism is concerned. He wrongly deduced that.
Creation, do you mind if I add on to what you're saying? So basically, if you actually look at Darwin, he was actually a failed doctor that took one vacation to the Galapagos Islands and thinks he discovered everything. The mysteries of the universe. I mean, when you look at DNA and you look at evolution, when you actually look at the fathers of biology, a lot of them were rooted in white supremacy and Eurocentric being the most sophisticated. Not only that, it kind of contradicts if, supposedly we were made from apes or monkeys, which they actually just updated that study. We're not made from 98% of their DNA. They made actually more comprehensive study, and you can look this up. We actually have only about 88%. But even something as delicate as the eye, all it takes is a very slight variation for us to be blind. So when you look at a prokaryote, which is basically the multiplication of cells, right? Essentially, how could we possibly be some sort of first of all, how did we diverge from a plant cell to an animal cell, and we still don't have a cell wall? How were we able to even the laws and concepts of survival of the fittest and natural selection? How were we able to get gills and somehow develop a lung system? And even if we were able to make it from water to land, if survival of the fittest is true, how were we be able to not get picked out by natural selection? A lot of it's contradictory. And actually, when you actually look at Charles Darwin's literature, he always preferred saying that Europeans were the most evolved and that Africans were savages, and basically you have this racist hierarchy when you actually look at it, and that foundation basically carried on to why you see a lot of racism within the early founding fathers of biology.
If you actually look at the original name of his book, it was talking about the theory of evolution and preferred races. Literally, the name of his book had preferred races in the title. They had to take that out so that they could teach it in schools. But you're absolutely right. Charles Darwin was a very rabid racist individual. He thought evolution was true and that that the white race was superior to the African race. Absolutely.
And again, I'm not one to, I hate when people, as a man of color, I hate when people pull the race card. I think it's really ridiculous. But if you actually really research the founding fathers of biology, most of them were based on white supremacy and that Europeans were the most civilized and the most evolved, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, the theory of evolution, it's just itself is racist. It's saying that people can evolve more than other people, and it gives them permission to do atrocities. Hitler thought that the Aryan race had evolved more than all of the other races. The Japanese thought that they were superior because they had evolved the farthest because they didn't have a lot of hair. And they said, we've evolved the farthest away from the monkeys. And then you had Pol Pot that thought that his race had evolved the farthest, and so forth and so on. So when people talk about the atrocities that is done in religious, for religious reasons, and any atrocities done in anything is bad, but it doesn't hold a candle to evolution.
Well, this is a very interesting subject to me. I appreciate your time and effort.
No problem. Do you have any additional questions?
No, I'm just going to listen and mark my questions.
Sure. Okay. Let me see. I don't know how to say your name, but you're next up. Araucari?
Araucaria, like the tree. So good conversation. This is my first live. It's good to be here. I kind of want to talk about information gain a little bit because I think it would be useful to nail down what exactly you mean by that if we're talking about like Shannon entropy or some other measures. I would
define it as this.
It might be best to maybe just start with some evolution, evidence for evolution. I think that's a nice thing to talk about. So, as I'm sure you're aware,
let me define my term real quickly. That way you'll know. So when I say genetic information gain, for me to believe that macroevolution is true, it's genetic because it has to be passed on to its children, obviously. Information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA, and obviously it'd have to be gained from something that wasn't there before. That would be my definition of genetic information gain.
So you're not doing this in terms of information entropy, Shannon entropy, Claude's theory of entropy, none of that?
No.
Okay. So if you have like an autoimmune disorder and let's say your body attacks its own ability to make insulin, you would consider that a degradation because it's maladaptive, it's a loss of function. Is that safe to say?
I would have to know the exact mechanism about how that happens, but I think that's fair.
If you assume it's heritable, right? Like, or sickle cell anemia. If you have a gene that's heritable that gives you, the ability for blood to not go through your body very well, that would clearly be maladaptive, right?
Yeah, it would. But if it causes a problem, then yeah.
But what if having only one copy of that gene gives you the ability to survive malaria? Is that degradation or is that information gain?
Yeah, that's just like saying that's no different than saying that if I cut off my hands, I'm now immune to handcuffs. Look how much I've evolved. Yes, you are immune to certain things. And if I cut off, it depends on how you phrase the question. Because I could say, if I did cut off my hands, technically, am I immune to being handcuffed? Of course I am. But come on, man, is that degradation or information gain?
This
So
is a
just
genuine
because you
question.
catch,
Is anybody immune to actually malaria? I know there's vaccines, but has anybody fully been immune from malaria? Because from my I mean, I could be ignorant because I haven't
well,
looked this up because I don't think anybody's immune from malaria. We have vaccines for it, but has
it
any
might.
human genetically been strong and immune enough to actually fight malaria?
I don't think immunity is the right word, but I think it's generally acknowledged that having one copy of the
Yeah.
sickle cell gene is very adaptive.
Yeah, it
to
it
dealing with
helps
malaria.
prevent it. But it's just like, again, saying that I don't have any feet, so I can't catch any feet fungus. So I'm immune from it, right? So is it beneficial? Yes, it's beneficial in the very select scenario that if I don't have any feet, I can't catch a foot fungus. So technically I am immune to athlete's feet if I don't have any feet. So in the very select question of am I immune to it and is that a benefit? Then yes. But is it information gain? Clearly not.
And I think that's just a bad example, just due to the fact that we do adapt to we do have an immune system that
I got you.
adapts, and the diversity in procreation.
David.
That's why there's something called like incest, because the more you
David, I got you, man.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't want to sound rude. I don't mind people adding in, but I don't want it to seem like it's a bunch of Christians against one like atheist or somebody that's asking questions. If you got something to add too, please. But I want him to be able to land his
I'm
plane.
not even trying to. Well, I mean, we can approach it from a Christian point of view, but I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking more so about, that's just simply a bad example, because I don't think anybody has been immune to malaria.
I know, brother. I appreciate you. Listen, I'm not trying to sound rude at all, but I just really want him to be able to land his plane because he hasn't got to speak yet. I apologize, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate it. But the place that I really wanted to start, though, was just some evolution evidence for macroevolution. Because you say you aren't aware of any. I think the best place to start is just human chromosome count. Chimpanzees have 48 chromosomes in 24 pairs. Humans have 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. And it's very easy to take a look at our chromosome 2 and tell that it came from two different chimp chromosomes that merged together. The same chromosome has a lot of the genes for language development. It has incredibly conserved regions where the telomeres merged in the first place. And if you don't, you can look at this with karyotyping. You don't even need particularly sophisticated equipment to see that humans have one less pair of chromosomes than chimps, and it's very clear that it's because there were two chimp chromosomes, 2A and 2B, that merged. I think tens of millions of years ago. I think it's pretty hard evidence to refute.
Well, have you looked at the actual refutations and say that it's not because it's a problem?
Are the refutations around the number of chromosomes and the chromosome counts?
No, about why about human chromosome 2 not being a result of fusion. See, the problem is that they need, because we have less chromosomes, they need for them to say that for evolutionists to say that we came from that, you literally need to predict a fusion. You have to have that because they have more chromosomes than us. So you have to say that if we came from them, you have to have a reason as to why we have less chromosomes. So then you have to say that, well, these fused. So then they went through the chromosomes and determined that our number 2 has the most evidence for fusion. But have you looked at the evidence as to why this is not fusion?
I don't think there's good scientific refutation for this, because like I said, you can look at this with the karyotype. You don't even need to do genetic mapping, but the genetic mapping, you can look at this gene is here in R2, this gene is there on their 2A, this gene is here in R2, this gene is there on their 2B.
Well, again, comparative analysis wouldn't mean that we came from one another. I would expect that you're going to find millions of things within them and us that are going to be very similar. We have a lot of the same code.
Oh, sure. It's very high similarity. And everybody, I think, admits that. But in this case, we're talking just about the specific circumstances that, chromosomes aren't randomized between all the species. Like they're very similar. You can map the genes between them very easily. And
right, and I would expect them to be just like the DNA that tells the apes to build a hand. I would expect that to be identical in a human because it's doing the same functions and it's literally doing the same thing. So I expect that code to be very similar, if not identical. That wouldn't prove common ancestor. It'd also prove common designer, right?
I mean, if we're bringing in common designers, is a possibility that can explain all sorts of things.
Right. So I'm just saying that we could look at the same evidence and come to two different conclusions. So that's why I kind of set up a standard of saying genetic information gain. That would be my falsifiable standard. That's the problem when I have when people bring me degradation, because that's unfalsifiable standard. Now, if you said a chromosome fused, I could, even if I granted that, that's not quote unquote new information. It's literally existing information. Where did the chromosomes come from? That's not telling me the origins or how something happened by saying that these fused together. First of all, I don't agree with that, but even if I was, it wouldn't be new information, it's existing information. New information was saying that it didn't have chromosomes, and here's how the chromosome evolved.
Well, in terms of being a scientific theory, it's falsifiable. Like if somebody wanted to falsify the theory that chromosomes 2A and 2B in chimps formed the human chromosome 2, they could falsify that if they wanted to.
Well, and I think they have. It's not something that I'm 100% on. That's why I have to look it up a little bit. But you can go. Have you been to like Answers in Genesis or the Creation for Institute research or whatever it's called, and look at their refutations?
I grew up Mormon, so I'm super familiar with apologetics.
Okay, so what is their viewpoint that human chromosome 2 is not a fusion site?
I'm not sure I know a good refutation for that.
That's what I'm saying. I think I would look that up.
Cool. I'll give it a look and see what explanations are out there.
But regardless, I don't want to seem like I'm not going to contend with your argument. Even if I was, the reason why I'm saying this, even if I was to agree with you that, okay, you got a fusion site, that's still, it wouldn't contend with genetic information gain, because it doesn't show there's no information there. There's no gain of information there. It's literally just two chromosomes that fused.
Well, I would argue there's tons of gain of information there, because some of the genes that are well conserved on chromosome 2 need to be well conserved. And some of the biggest changes we have in language abilities are on chromosome 2, which are some of the biggest changes that the biggest
okay, but
differences we have with chimps.
You say they're conserved. Did those genes pre-exist? Were they in the apes?
Yeah, that's the definition of conservation in this context.
Okay, well then that's not new information then. It's existing information.
But contrasted with the language skills and those genes which support language, which did change, I think is strong evidence for new information.
Oh, but that's inferred. That's not testable and observable. That's inferred.
Oh, sure it is. You can test it. You can take these genes and you can knock them out, and you can see the effect in living organisms.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that the gene itself is not testable, observable. The fact that you're saying that it come from apes, that's not testable and observable. That's inferred.
Well, I'm saying that the language skill genes clearly evolved in humans because we have language skills that apes don't.
Well, now you're begging the question. You're saying that because we have language, therefore it had to evolve.
I'm saying that it's an easy difference to look at the two and to say that we have these skills that apes don't, and I think that's good evidence for gain of information.
Okay, but you have to show me that it came from there and that we gained it, not that because we have it and you're already presupposing that evolution is true, so therefore it had to evolve.
I'm not presupposing. I think there's a scientific theory that evolution is true, and you can look for evidence that supports that theory. And that's not
sure.
Presupposition,
Well, but what the way you worded it is, but that's why I ask for anything that's testable and observable that's not inferred. And what you've done is you're saying that this happened millions and millions of years ago. Well, I can't test and observe that. I have to infer that this happened.
I think that's one of the problems with creationism, is that there's a tricky line around what is inferred and what is not. I think the fact that you can see it with their karyotype takes it beyond inference to a degree. But if you're not willing to accept inference at all, then I think
no, it's not.
That tears down a lot of the foundations that you would use for science.
Yeah, it's not that you can't use inference on things. I'm not saying that, but if it's all inference, that's a problem, right?
I don't know
So,
what
and
all
I don't
inference would look
have
like.
evolution. So I don't have an example, or excuse me, I don't have an unreasonable standard. I have a very reasonable standard. You and I would agree that if we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, then information gain happened literally quadrillions of times. So I just need an example of it that's testable and observable and not long ago and far away.
I mean, evolution happened long ago and far away.
So it just, evolution stopped. It's not, evolution's not happening anymore.
No, I think it is. But if we're talking about, like in this case, I'm trying to present good evidence for macroevolution, which I think you claim to be interested in. That evidence was long ago and far away. It's just
so macroevolution doesn't happen anymore.
I mean, I don't know. I think it depends a lot on your definitions.
Yeah. So if it happens, then we should be able to test and observe it. And this is why I like bacteria, because I brung up the Linsky and the experiment of these things, because we can see 9 generations in a single day. So why is it evolution only happened long ago and far away, but when we actually test and observe it, it doesn't happen?
I mean, I think it's just a matter of time scale. Like there are geologic processes that happen that you can't observe today, but I don't think anybody would, contest that happened.
I would contend with some of those things.
And,
Yeah, for example, I would say that the Grand Canyon took weeks, not millions of years. So I would contend with some of those arguments. I mean, literally the place where the river enters the Grand Canyon as to where the river exits, where it enters is actually higher than where it exits as far as the canyon walls, right? The plateau. So
sure, but
that means that,
argument. Sorry.
But hold on, just let me land. If that means that if that river cut that canyon over millions of years, that means that river flowed uphill for millions of years, and clearly we don't believe that would happen.
And the flip side of that be to say that if you're claiming you can make a canyon in a matter of weeks, why aren't we seeing people make canyons in a matter of weeks these days? Isn't that the same thing?
Well, people don't make it. No, but I think it was an earthen dam. We can actually see the quote unquote fossil lake that was actually behind it, right? We can see the shoreline that used to be there. So there's no contention that there used to be a lake there. I just think it was an earthen dam at the end of the flood, right? You would have some river sources that obviously started up new or got changed around, moved around. And as this lake kept filling up with water, it had an earthen dam, and eventually it went over the dam and caused a massive washout. There's different evidences you can see from this, from the cavitation and stuff. There's better sources on this than I am. But my point is that there's, I think, in my opinion, clear evidence that shows that this is not a slow process over millions and millions of years.
Okay. I think my point was just that I would hope that we could admit that things can happen over long processes and not confuse that with, well, we're not observing long processes happening right now, so they couldn't have existed in the past. That's all.
Yeah, but genetic information gain is not one of those things that would have to take a long process. Again, why is it in 80,000 generations in humans we went from an ape-type ancestor to a human-type ancestor, according to the theory of evolution? Why is it in the same amount of generational count in bacteria we see less off or quote-unquote degraded bacteria? Why is it long ago and far away all of this information gain happened, but again, when we test the same amount of generational counts, and I understand it's not analogous as far as bacteria are not humans, but bacteria are very small, so you should be able to see it very, very quickly. If it happens, then you're going to be able to notice it, and this is literally the reason for the experiment. So again, why does it only happen when you're not? Is it like the slit experiment? Anytime you look at evolution, it stops working?
I think you have to look to see. Thank you.
Yeah,
This was a fun conversation.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So listen, like I said, the reason why I do this is because I like to strengthen the faith of the Christians, and if you're not saved, I try to get you saved, and you're an educated individual. So my next question to you is, what do you know about Christ, man?
What I learned in Mormonism, and that was about enough for me.
All right, well, fair enough. I'm not going to shove it down your throat, but give me a follow. I would love to be able to share Christ with you next time, and if you have any questions, give me a shout. All right, guys. Going to make these my last guests. I'm not going to have up anybody. So if you have a question, come up now. I'll put it that way. Come up now if you have a question. And then I'm going to close it off after that and make these my last guests. So if you have a question, then step up now.
I have a question.
What you got, bud?
Why are you taking it so easy on these people? Come on, guys. Look, you're taking it too easy on them. You realize
well,
that
it just
God,
depends on how you come in here.
He used to literally stomp people out when they denied him like they are. Look, man. We got it so easy as it is. Do we not? Do we not? He says right here, evolution is false. 100% correct. It takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does to believe the book. All right? The flood was real. Of course it was. Every single religion around the planet is going to tell you about the flood because the flood happened. The planet itself proves it, does it not? It does. The pre-trib isn't biblical. I guess it never says pre-trib or... That's one we might could argue about right there, I guess. He said we wasn't appointed to that stuff.
Well, tribulation is not wrath. He said we're not appointed unto wrath. He actually said the exact opposite. He said you will face tribulation. So I think that's a problem when people confuse tribulation and wrath.
Who was he talking to when he said you?
He's talking about the Christians, right? He said you're going to face tribulation.
He was talking to the Jews. That's who he was talking to. He wasn't talking to all the Christians.
Well, tribulation is what the world does to the Christians. Wrath is what God does to the world. And if you follow Christ, he said you're going to have to pick up your cross and follow him. You will be persecuted. He even says, blessed are those that are persecuted in his name's sake. So that's tribulation. That's not wrath. Wrath is what God does to the world. So we're not appointed unto wrath, but we will face tribulation.
Hopefully. I think we all freaking deserve it. That one's kind of iffy, right? That one can go either way, depending on how you read it and who you are when you read it.
Well, it's I would contend and say no, it can't go both ways because the Bible literally states that you got the 70th week of Daniel, you have a 7-year time period. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 literally says that the rapture cannot happen until after the man of sin is revealed. The man of sin is revealed, according to Daniel 9, it literally in the middle of the.
Right.
There you go. So the pre-tribulation viewpoint literally cannot be true because the rapture cannot happen until the middle of it. So got to contend with that.
Really get bad until then, right?
Well, the persecution of the Christians, I don't know how long it takes, but I mean, obviously it's not going to take 3.5 years because we know that when the seals start opening up, the first seal is clearly peace, right? He makes a treaty with many for 1 week. And then when you open up the first seal, it says, he goes through and it says he conquers and conquers, but he's given a bow but no arrows. We know that the first seal is peace because the second seal is war.
As long as I don't have to experience the wrath that he's talking about, I'm chilling.
Yeah. The world is going to persecute the Christians very, very bad, but God's not going to put his wrath on the Christians.
Right. I just you've got this guy in here. What's this Hayden guy? He has just been railing on it every point you've made.
Yeah,
it's driving me nuts. I had to.
Well, I prefer the atheists in here too. As long as they follow my rules and don't do anything crazy in the comments, they're free to disagree with me, and hopefully one day I'll plant a seed.
Yep. Move on to the next guy. I'll listen. I'll touch on if I get you on the song.
Yeah, no problem, brother. I appreciate you coming. Pierston, what's up, man?
Hey, really enjoying listening to this conversation. I love that you're hosting this and preaching the good word of the gospel. I wanted to share a concept that I heard from one of my favorite pastors a couple years ago here in Dallas. He supposed that because Jesus' first miracle was creating wine, turning water to wine, which was turning something with no apparent age into something with apparent age, because wine is essentially aged grape juice. His belief was that really told the story of why the apparent age of the earth, that it may appear to be older than it may actually be, that miracle essentially invalidated the question of whether or not the apparent age of the earth was relevant to the conversation. Does that make sense? And have you heard that concept before?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with it somewhat. So there's clear things that God put age in. You know, when he made the garden, and Adam and Eve were never infants. So he didn't make them infants. And when Adam and Eve were made, they were fully grown, sexually mature, and ready to have babies day one. They never had to grow up, right? So he made them with the appearance of age. So if you saw Adam and Eve on day 2 and you were unaware of day 1, you would think that maybe they were 40 years old or something. I don't know. But you wouldn't see them as babies. You would say, hey, man, you're probably about 38, 39 years old, right? And Adam would say, no, I'm about 28 hours old. So clearly he made it with age. Also, when he made the animals and he made the trees that had fruit on them, the fruit never grew, right? It didn't grow. So God had to make that fruit with age. He didn't give Adam and Eve a bunch of seeds and say, plant these really quickly, you're going to starve. So clearly they were made with the appearance of age. Uranium decays into lead. So now that we know that uranium decays into lead, if we see lead, then God clearly created lead, but also because uranium decays into it, any lead that we find has the appearance that it all came from uranium. So I understand that God created the appearance of age. So, but that's not the same to say that when he said he created creation in 6 days, that therefore we should take that and mean, well, he also did this through a long period of time. I don't agree with that. I think that those are literal 6-day creation events with the appearance of age created in them.
Yeah, and that was the point this pastor was making, is that, with carbon dating as an example, and your point with uranium and lead is a great one, because we understand how long it takes. That could point, with the volume of lead we have on Earth, to the Earth being a certain age or inferred age. I think his point was, just like Adam was created day one as being, 40 whatever, not an infant, the whole planet could have been created with a, inferred time period prior, an apparent age. So I didn't know if you'd heard that concept, but when I heard that, I think that really brings a lot of people into the fold, because I forget the name of the gentleman who spoke, I think 2 or so ago, who was mentioning that he struggles with the evidence. And I think that really is the point of the discussion. I think that the evidence is designed to drive us to question. God made us logical, thinking, inquisitive beings for a reason. And so that apparent age really should drive you back to him, to the creator. And it's not incompatible with the creation narrative, which is something I just hadn't heard before.
See, I feel like I feel like he wanted us to seek out and, to question things.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Look at the disciples. Every single one of them needed proof, and they're standing right before Jesus themselves, right? And they still needed proof. We needed proof too, and the thing is, he has given us proof, guys. So what if it's not scientific? It's historic. There's historical proof in the Bible. Every story that happened in the Bible down that line, it all happened, and it can prove it by looking at our planet today, right? Like Sodom and Gomorrah. You go look, Sodom and Gomorrah is still there. He destroyed it, but it's still there. You can go see the remnants. Look at the ark. The ark is right there on Mount Ararat where it said it was, right? Look at where Moses crossed the sea, leaving people out of Egypt. They all, that whole army that chased them, drowned in the water, all that stuff's still down there in the bottom of that water. It all happened, every single bit of it.
All right. Guys, I've been doing this now for 2 hours and 45 minutes. I appreciate it. I will be live again tomorrow. The way that I do it is I go live every Monday and I go live every Thursday permitting. And then I go live randomly when I can after that. I am starting to grow thanks to you guys. I really appreciate all the support that I get. I'm starting to grow bigger, so I may look at adding a day or something like that. But as it sits right now, I do go live every Mondays and I go live every Thursday. And then I go live randomly when I can, like today, obviously. So
I love what you're doing, man. I think some of these people
Thank you,
need
man. I
people like
appreciate
you
it.
out here. I think they need people like you out here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So I will say this. Thank you to everyone that gives to the ministry. I put it right back into the ministry. So I use it to buy, computer screens, microphones, lights, and setups and things like this. I put it right back into it. I appreciate it. So I don't always have the opportunity to stop because I'm right in the middle of a debate or having a conversation. When somebody throws a sticker on stage, I try to give a little salute to say thank you. But at the end of it, I want to personally thank those individuals who give. It doesn't go unnoticed and it doesn't go unappreciated. I know some people also like to go to the PayPal that I have on my page and they like to give that way. I never ask, but I always want to make sure that I do thank those individuals at the end of my live because it doesn't go unnoticed and it is appreciated, even if I can't stop at the time. I wished TikTok had something like YouTube has to where you can save like a super chat so that you can go back and thank the specific individuals. But unfortunately, it kind of pops up on the screen and then it kind of goes away. So I want to thank everyone who takes, time out and to support the ministry. I do appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, I do this because I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians and I want to bring those who are scientifically minded over to Christ. So if you don't know about Jesus, I want to tell you about him. That's my purpose. So thank you guys. God bless. I'll be back on tomorrow. And as always, Mr. Allen, you get the last word.
Which day do you think is your best that you don't have?
I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know because I've been growing so rapidly that my normal is like where it's at now, 60, 65. That's my normal view count. But the last several days, I have consistently held, even today, over 100 for the majority of the views. So I held today on this live over 100 for the majority of the live. So it's hard to get analytics off of that when I'm doing good, and I appreciate it. God bless everybody. I do. But it's hard to get analytics off of that because it's up and down, up and down, up and down. I do know that Fridays are not great because people are leaving out, going to town or whatever. Sundays are really good, but I don't, people are kind of going back in their houses, getting ready to go back to work the next day. So they're checking out the TikTok before they go to bed. So Sundays are really good. Fridays are not great. Other than that, it's kind of a shot in the dark. I moved it to Mondays because Mondays seem to be pretty good. And Thursday's been working out for me. So thank everybody for the support. But yeah, the analytics are kind of hard to get a hold of right now.
Well, I've been trying to keep up with it, and I think Wednesdays is a good day. I've seen a lot of people, because maybe they do go to church on Wednesdays, and sometimes maybe they can't. But I've noticed them coming to your live because something maybe come up or something like that. They didn't get to go to church, but they join your live.
Yep. I think so. Tomorrow when I go live, if I hold over 100, then that'll kind of mess. If I go back to 60, 70, 80 people in tomorrow's live, then I will agree with you 100%. But if I go over 100 again tomorrow, then I'm just like, it messes analytics up. But I mean, I enjoy everybody that comes in here anyway. But I agree with you. If tomorrow shows a drop, 100%. I think you're onto something, Alan.
Okay. I should know something tomorrow about that surgery. I think they'll be scheduling the surgery tomorrow, and they'll be letting me know. But other than that, God bless you and keep going strong.
Thank you, gentlemen. I will see y'all tomorrow. God bless, guys.